a roll call? Good, okay. And Jess will join online. I didn't see her there. Okay, so Ange will watch for her. All right, so you're good to go, Ange? All right, welcome everybody. It's May. I had to think about that for a minute. Welcome to our May board meeting for 2024. I will start this meeting by acknowledging and respecting the Indigenous people within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And I'll ask for an adoption of the agenda with the inclusion of 5.2, letter of support, 8.2, bylaw 2943, 8.4, bylaw 2933, 8.5, 2934, and 9.4.2, Beasley and Preston Valley, and the addition of the addendum. Jackman, McLaren Co. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We've got chat open. Can you keep chat open? Because it's,
I'm not sure what's going on. I have 3 screens.
so hit OK over here. Sorry, folks, 1 second. Chat function's different on Zoom. So where is the chat function? Okay, great, thanks. So Vice Chair Lockwood will watch the chat for those online. Adoption of the minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Any edits, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. CAO, you have some introductions.
Yeah, through the chair, the final piece is in place after the domino falling throughout HR. So Monique St. Louis joins us as our administrative assistant there, replacing Paige, who, as you know, moved into Regan's position after Regan left. She required a fully remote position, so Regan had to move on to something different. And that's caused a little bit of a domino effect. So Monique joins us to fill in Paige's position.
Thank you. All right, so we have our first delegation, Central Kootenay Food Policy Council. Damon, we are welcome to our table, and we'll hand it over to you. I think, Ange, you need this now. Thank you.
So where am I pointing? Up there?
It will be right here. I just need to. Oh, really? Oh,
Back here.
no, it should work.
Oh, wait, it's gotta go.
Oh, it's off, that's why.
Oh,
I'll have to do that.
oh, there we go. I got it.
So
Another. Sorry, it's
Okay, we're good to go.
Great. You want to fix that TV though?
Which one?
That one's frozen.
Oh, directors on this side of the table. This screen is frozen. Do you have it on your computers you can follow along? Everybody's.
We're supposed to use our computers
Oh, you can use your computers.
for Zoom, for.
no, just.
Yeah, you can pull it up in eScribe or you can go onto Zoom.
Is it?
Oh, wait, they're gonna try and fix it.
Yeah.
All right, Damon, over to you.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. My name is Damon Chenard. I'm the new Executive Director of the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council.
I will.
Oh, I know what happened.
We're almost there.
Okay, today's presentation is an overview of the document I hope that you've all been provided with. It consists of three parts: a high-level overview of the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council, our case to grow Food Policy Council, and our Grow and Connect Interior project overview and proposal. Due to the time constraints, I will skim over section 1 in order to dedicate the majority of the presentation to section 2 and 3. Further details on section 1 can be found in the provided document and are well documented and presented on our website. The document provides an explanation of the roles of the Food Policy Council, the role the Food Policy Council provides in regards to regional food security and how those roles are embedded in our organizational structure. The document also highlights the distinct function of the council meeting and convening diverse regional stakeholders, as well as its involvement in policy work and plans, such as the Central Kootenay Food Security Action Plan and resources like the Farm and Food Directory. In 2023, the Food Policy Council met to renew and simplify our strategic plan, and you can find a copy of this in the appendix of the document provided. The work of the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council staff is shaped by several regional plans and objectives outlined in the document, such as our new strategic plan, the evidence-based food policy project, the Food Security Action Plan, and the RDCK Ag Plan. Additionally, feedback from our policy counselors plays a crucial role in guiding our efforts. Since 2017, the RDCK has provided $15,000 in core funding annually, laying a solid foundation for the council's operations. This amount is distributed among various expenses and supports a significant portion of the council's fundamental activities. Although the council continuously seeks additional funding, such resources are often earmarked for specific projects rather than supporting the council's core functions. The current funding we receive roughly equates about 1 day a week of work for its one staff member. In concluding the first section, I'll invite you again to learn more about our history and work on our website, which is very well documented and laid out there. In section 2, the case to grow. As the dynamics of our food system evolve, so too do the requirements of the Food Policy Council. In order to meet the demands that are impacting our food security, now is the opportune time to elevate its support and impact across the region. Changing weather patterns and extreme conditions now pose significant threats to agriculture, both globally and locally, with destabilized global security further disrupting food supply chains. These challenges are compounded by increasing regional climate emergencies and an economic landscape that deepens household food insecurity as food costs continue to soar. There is a pressing need to enhance food system supports in the Central Kootenay to tackle these multifaceted and escalating challenges. Over the last decade, we've all directly experienced the new normal and its profound impact on food systems. While individual stressors might occasionally be mitigated, the broader trend is an increasing interplay of food systems pressures that could lead to cascading effects when multiple stressors align. Since 2017, the Council has developed 2 plans focused on enhancing food security through a variety of actions and policy recommendations. These plans complement the RDCK Ag Plan and the newly approved Climate Action Ideas Plan and extend into emergency planning. The Central Kootenay Food Policy Council has utilized its resources to the fullest extent and addressed many identified actions within those plans. A significant number of additional actions still require the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council's support. Furthermore, these documents are meant to be living documents requiring ongoing updates and as changes occur. Core funding contribution of the RDCK has been leveraged to access funds for several projects that serve the Central Kootenay and result in positive social and economic outcomes. As mentioned, many of these funds often come with restrictions that limit the potential for capacity building, such as the case with our newest project, Grow and Connect Interior. The Food Policy Council is well positioned to scale up its role in food system supports for the Central Kootenay. We have a proven track record of undertaking initiatives that strengthen the food system. However, in order to enhance our impact, we require an increased capacity. A greater capacity would enable us to further leverage our energy towards meeting our funding goals in the Grow and Connect and Steward project and work towards further anticipated economic and social returns through a number of capacity building functions. And some of these projections in this chart here will be addressed further in a minute. The proposed increase in core funding from the RDCK is for an additional $30,000 on top of existing $15,000, resulting in a total annual contribution of $45,000. We're proposing staging this increase over 2 years in $15,000 increments. The additional funding would be allocated to 3 capacity building functions to enhance our ability to develop further partnerships with generative outcomes, enable us to respond more effectively to emerging opportunities, and strengthen work on food security efforts in the RDCK. Specific allocations would be divided between a part-time communications role to better communicate internal and regional messaging and make better use of the ED's time. Additional work capacity supporting one additional day a week to enhance our capacity to advance actions and improve outreach and engagement efforts, which would equate to 2 days a week of work for the ED. A resource fund supporting more efficient project launches and better capitalization on arising opportunities. There is an urgent need to increase food system supports in the Central Kootenay to address the compounding and cascading food system challenges on the horizon. The Central Kootenay Food Policy Council is well equipped to extend its efforts for greater effectiveness in supporting our resiliency in meeting these challenges. The work of the Food Policy Council typically falls outside the scope of standard funding programs and cycles. Additionally, food security funding is highly competitive, and one of the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council's objectives is to avoid competing for funding or pursuing competitive projects, thereby ensuring impartiality and broad regional support. Amidst these competitive funding cycles, the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council champions collaboration to identify broad opportunities for optimizing resource utilization. The core funding from the RDCK has been leveraged to bring significant economic and social capital to the region. However, with only 1 day a week of core funding, our capacity is limited. To better respond to the region's needs, we require this additional core funding. Section 3 is our Grow and Connect Interior project funding proposal. Grow and Connect Interior is a great example of leveraging partnerships within and beyond the region to address larger scale food security matters and enhancing economic potential within our food systems. This project provides a platform where local food industry stakeholders, including producers, retailers, nonprofits, and transport carriers, can come together to map, analyze, and improve their food distribution processes. It was founded on the premise that mapping tools and relational data could support effective visualizations to solve local supply chain challenges through better coordination. The project was initiated between the LCIC, Lower Columbia Initiatives Corporation, and TrueGIS, a local software development firm, and further leveraged the Selkirk Research and Alternative Food Networks to form a broad partnership that spans multiple regions. This partnership group identified the need for a more sophisticated version of the initial software. With successful fundraising efforts underway, Grow and Connect Interior has launched into its next phase. The project has two parts focused on enhancing food distribution across the southern interior. Firstly, it will develop a custom logistics platform for food industry stakeholders, and secondly, will entail individual pilots within each of the partner regions to explore different use cases for the platform. The Kootenay pilot will be led by the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council and the LCIC and consists of 2 components. A custom platform interface, which will function as a tailored communication and logistics platform, and a transportation pilot, which will involve route mapping, aggregation, implementation, and testing that is aimed at refining logistics and distribution strategies through real-world feedback and iterative development. There are numerous objectives and outcomes the project seeks to accomplish. The project has a strong alignment with various aspects of the Food Security Action Plan and the RDCK Agriculture Plan. And in future iterations, we believe this platform will have strong use cases in supporting efforts related to emergency planning and recovery. The Kootenay pilot will engage stakeholders in a comprehensive iterative process to identify needs and opportunities, test proposed routes, and assess infrastructure gaps in food distribution. Growing Connect Interior is an exciting opportunity to find efficiency and opportunity within food supply chains across the Kootenays. The project is already underway and has secured a significant amount of funding to initiate product development and engagement. Upwards of $700,000 of the funding goals will directly impact our local economy, as the software development and Kootenay pilot will be based in the RDCK. While the majority of the funding is secured, the Kootenay pilot is still working towards its commitment of $190,000. Currently, we have $100,000 secured funding and are working on our final $90,000. Our ask of the RDCK is to contribute $20,000 towards making this project a success. These funds would be allocated towards project management and hard costs like travel and materials, areas where our current funding does not support. I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions you have over the next while. Today, I'm always open for any one of you reaching out to me for further discussion.
Thank you, Damon. And I see your AGM's on June 14th at Elk Group Conservation Society.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to connect with the group.
Definitely, please come out.
A couple of notes for you. One, just to acknowledge your funding request and the process we would have around that. So we've closed the 2024 budget cycle is completed March of every year is when we confirm that it's submitted to the ministry. So my recommendation would be to send a letter, funding request letter for October of next fall, so we can consider it in our 2025 budget. The other option is to directly solicit to directors who may have community development or discretionary grants available. So those are two different options you can look at. We do have a speakers list. I want to first acknowledge the regional distribution needs are critical. I really want to acknowledge that when I did food systems research 10, 15 years ago in this region, that was one of the biggest barriers was our distribution designed around a global market. And so regionalizing that is a huge aspect. So really good work on that front. It's great to see that. So I should not do all the talking. I had Jackman on the list. Anyone else on the speakers list right now? I see no one in chat. Go ahead, Director Jackman.
Sure, thank you. So through the chair, you are in kind of a relaunch mode or evolving evolution. And in the Creston Valley, we have two organizations that have also evolved. They've recently agreed to share resources. They have a lot of going concerns, the food hub, the farmers market, the food processing through Fields Forward and the like, and actually work with people who are producing food. It's not on the sort of the policy side, of course. So you make a couple of good points about, avoiding competition. And, to me, it's a question, where do we direct government funding and who is leveraging funding? And I know what Preston's doing. So my question to you is, have you recently talked to the Preston groups, their boards, about what they're doing, what their objectives are to avoid overlap and make sure the use of funding is optimized? And if you haven't, are you going to have that conversation in the near future? And ideally, you might invite some of us, because Town of Creston and areas A, B, and C have a pretty solid relationship, and we know what's happening there. And the food producers are getting a leg up, and innovation is being, they're getting what they need. I'd like to hear the conversation in the room with the conversation as to how your group will help those groups.
Yeah, I really look forward to more conversations with Preston. I think there's I've got a lot of thoughts around that, and Preston is on my list. We were there last year. I was one of the organizers with the Food and Buyers Expo as well, and so that was really great to get to know the community deeper, understand the needs, and really see on the ground what's going on there. And yeah, by all means, I think it's impressive what Preston is doing, and I think the projects that we're working on, I think display the potential. This project that we just recently, this project we're working on now is working with the Kamloops Food Policy Council and a food hub from the Kamloops one and the Boundary Community Ventures one. And I look forward to pulling in all the other food hubs. And I think that's one of the things that the Central Kootenay, we have the Creston Food Hub, but now there's the Fireweed Food Hub in Silverton, and there's probably more whatever you call food hubs in the region. And so this is where the Food Policy Council is a strategic partner, is that we can pull all of those groups together and take a very regional perspective on things. And Creston has very unique needs, and by all means, I really look forward to that conversation evolving and just looking at how we can create more sophisticated opportunities, because what I'm seeing in a lot of the funding as well right now is that strategic partnerships are really beneficial to getting your funding right now. So.
Thank you. Directors, we are at time, but we have 3 questions, so I'm going to allow those questions be as concise as you can, please. Vandenberg, Popoff, and Page. Director Vandenberg is one of our East Shore directors as well from the Creston Valley. Go ahead, Vandenberg.
I will pass because Director Jackman pretty much hit the vein of the question that is, but I'm happy.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Popoff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Damon, since you're from the Slocan Valley, and are you familiar with a group of volunteers that are trying to establish food security in Winlaw?
Yeah, I have some familiarity with them. I know they're kind of recent and up and coming, and I've talked to a handful of them, and just because of my background with food, I'm hoping to have a little more engagement and support in their evolution as well. I think they're planning some emergency planning work right now, and there's a lot of different little pieces going on in different groups between Health Group and this new group that's emerging. But yeah, I haven't had a lot of contact with them, but I know a couple people that are working.
A supplemental on that.
Sorry, Director Popoff, can you just reach out to Damon directly? We do want to allow the other questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Paige, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for all the great work you do. I wanted just, if you're not already aware, draw your attention to the Nelson Area Economic Development Partnership between F&E and City of Nelson. One of the strategic priorities from last year was the development or the research in a load board. So there's parallel work going on there that I think.
Is that the load board that James took over at Clark Distribution?
I'm not sure it's been taken over, but they have been a funding request at CBC about developing one for the region, more for the entire, not specifically to agriculture, but
Yeah.
specifically to all the distribution.
Is this 3PL, is what they're calling the 3PL project potentially through the Chamber of Commerce?
Through the.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting with Amanda soon from the co-op, who I think has some interest in that. And I think this project, while we're keeping it very focused on agriculture and food producers and then the emergency implications surrounding that, the software development company that we're working with will be a huge asset to informing that. And I think the work we do is going to transfer over a lot to that initiative as well. I think that was definitely a conversation to be had, and Rebecca, who I'm working with the LCIC, is very aware of that project, I believe, and we have a scheduled meeting actually in the next week or so with, I think it's
Tom Thompson.
not Tom, the other guy who's working on that project, and then with Mike Stolte, who's been hired, I think, as a contractor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're having a meeting with them shortly.
Yeah, and I just make sure Andrea Wilkie's on your list.
Yeah, and Andrea did sell the load board to James, forgetting his last name right now. He's the new owner of Clark Transport. And so we've been working with James to make sure he's integrated into this. This whole project is really about taking the existing infrastructure and not trying to create new infrastructure. We have vehicles moving everywhere. We just need to look at the weaknesses and where the gaps lie. And this tool will really kind of help to identify and build the case for further funding and opportunities around that.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, Damon.
And
So
please
everybody.
feel free to reach out to me
Yes.
anytime.
And for the directors who may not have been here at the table during the pandemic, we did work with the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council on emergency measures and an RDCK food security plan. So that is available through the sustainability website or reach out to staff. And Central Kootenay Food Policy Council was pivotal in gathering all of the stakeholders across the region on a weekly basis to talk about immediate needs and long-term needs. So really great work, Damon, to you and your team. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you short. We don't always have a lot of time, a lot of business to do.
Yeah.
Now we are going to welcome Jessica from Community Energy Association. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you you so much for having me here today. I've mentioned Jessica Martin Thompson with Community Energy Association, and I'm here to give a quick update on the Kootenay Clean Energy Transition Project, which was supported by the board a number of years ago, and which we just keep working through. And yeah, we're working through the tech issues.
Jessica, I'm just gonna check sound real quickly. Director Davidoff, can you hear Jessica okay? The thumbs up, okay. Director Casely, good for you? Okay, great, thank you. Go ahead, Jessica.
Use my mom voice a little more.
Yeah.
And just wanted to say, you know, I'm a proud born and raised Kootenay girl as well. So I grew up in Fruitvale. Nelson was the big city for me growing up. And I spent too much time away kind of gathering my skills and expertise working with federal government, utilities, nonprofits, and actually moved back to the area and living folk here now with my family. So I've been raising the next generation of Kootenay, proud Kootenay folks. There you go. Just quickly for those that aren't familiar with the Community Energy Association, we've been working for over 25 years across the province. We're a BC-based nonprofit that supports local governments and Indigenous communities with climate action and helping those communities conserve energy and transition to a carbon future. Before I get going on the project details, I just want to kind of put a shout out to kind of the funders, and really this started with some seed funding from the 3 regional districts. So we have RDCK, so thank you for your generous support early on in the project, and that support allowed us to leverage additional funding through both utilities as well as the Columbia Basin Trust. And as well, outside of the funding partners, you know, we worked with local chambers, we worked with employment agencies, social agencies, environmental agencies, post-secondary institutions. This has really been a collaborative project across all 3 community districts. In 2019, Community Energy Association and Kootenay Employment Services came together and developed a bit of a vision for how we prepare and position the Kootenays to respond to, well, prepare for a clean energy future and a low carbon future. The 3 main objectives with the project are to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, of course, to lessen our impact on the planet by targeting the 2 highest emitting sectors, which is transportation and the built environment. To better understand kind of the key barriers to deep retrofit and deep low carbon tech, you know, what is getting in the way of folks. That includes, you know, limited knowledge, limited access to, you know, skilled trades and contractors, limited funding. There's just lots of barriers that we're exploring through that. And then the big one that we've been focused on for the last 2 years is actually localized capacity building. So making sure that we have the contractors' trades currently, as well as helping to support kind of the next generation of trades to get into that to accelerate the transition. So 2019, that was the vision. Between 2019 and now, you know, there was a few things that happened in the world. I won't dive into too many of them, but of course the COVID pandemic, you know, we were really hoping to kind of hit the ground running with in-person training workshops. That stopped, so we had to pivot very quickly. But the other 2 big ones that came out were the Federal Canada Greener Homes Grant Program. So, you know, all of a sudden there's all this funding that was available to homeowners, and yet we still didn't have the local capacity to support the work that was needed. Then another big one is the Home Performance Contractors Network. You know, I'll speak on another slide a bit about that. But that was initiated around the same time we were launching the program. And that's a network of, you know, they're kind of setting the bar for kind of what qualifications and certifications folks have in the retrofit industry. You know, there isn't a lot of regulations in that world. So they were setting the bar there, and we needed to align our efforts with what they were up to. As you can see here, high level. So with some seed funding early in 2019 from the 3 regional districts, we were able to leverage that funding almost 10-fold over the last 3 years. So it's been fantastic. We've had great support from all of the partners throughout the program. We were also able to leverage a number of other partnerships that Community Energy Association is working on. So of course we are working across the province. So, you know, we were able to kind of get into some of these larger projects that were happening kind of with Metro Vancouver, City of Vancouver, some big projects, and making sure that there was a rural lens that was provided to those opportunities. And I'll talk later on with some of the outputs of those things. So to dive into numbers, so kind of by the end of 2023, we were able to offer 37 training sessions, and that was, you know, everything from webinars that are, you know, recorded, all available, through to building science barbecues, you know, a little bit more casual, all the way through to kind of full day mechanical system workshops. And really on the technical side, making sure we're amping up the ability of the HVAC industry to participate. This is a session we held in Castlegar early on. What was great about this one is we not only had, energy advisors, local building officials, contractors involved, but we also had a great cohort of Suffolk College students and instructors that participated in this. So we've since gone on to do a bit more work with Suffolk College again, making sure that we've got an influx of the skilled trades that we need to help with this project and help with retrofits. As I mentioned, the Home Performance Contractors Network, so they are based out of Vancouver. They were doing some kind of larger marketing opportunities across the province. But, when we started this project, there was one contractor in the Kootenays that was registered. They were in the East Kootenays actually, and very few people were hearing about it. When we would always do surveys at the beginning of courses and when people were registering it. I think there was less than a quarter of folks who even knew that this was coming down the pipe. And you have to be registered for this program to access PBC rebates. So we really wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to bring some of that funding back into the community. So we've aligned our efforts really closely with HPCN. They kind of took my calls early on. We're just like, how are you representing the Kootenays? How are you representing local and rural opportunities? So where we've landed now is, they have a lot of module-based online learning, and we really wanted to make sure that those same opportunities were provided in person, hands-on, and, so that folks can be learning together, that peer-to-peer learning, we find incredibly important. So we have had incredible growth in that network, due to lots of efforts, but, we think some of it is that we were able to even let people know about the opportunity and then align the training so that they were meeting the qualifications. This is another session in council. There's one pictures of council. We've been doing lots of sessions in Nelson as well. But this one was a great one in Castlegar. This was with HVAC professionals. But what was nice again is taking that kind of module-based all online learning, doing it in person, and even one of the contractors that was participating opened up one of the homes he was working with, got buy-in from the homeowner so we could be there, take that technical learning and bring it in person and the realities of what's in a home. The first project that I was supporting through additional funding with Hydro was actually a Columbia Valley heat pump pilot. So they were really interested in looking to what the barriers were for heat pump adoption in communities. And, in the Columbia Valley, actually, they're not connected to the natural gas pipeline. So a lot of really expensive oil, really expensive propane. So figuring out the barriers from both the homeowner and the contractor side to continue through that process. And we have 32 homeowners at the start. A third of those were able to go through to the end and install heat pumps. But with that, there was a lot of really great learnings in terms of what are the true barriers that are getting in the way. A lot of them are, lack of an energy advisor on site, lack of the contractors. And, in that area, we're still dealing with this. It's just a narrative with certain contractors that don't want to kind of move into this space, that they don't work, that they're not good, that you just need to install a furnace when you're replacing a furnace. So getting through some of those barriers. Here's Gary. Gary was a pleasure to work with. So yeah, what we really wanted to do is actually have case studies. We wanted to have it about people, not about kind of the technology. We want to talk about people and why they're doing it, because there's all sorts of reasons and rationales as to why everybody's doing it. I always joke, I do it because I am an environmentalist. Not everybody is focused on that. So there's people that are doing it to save money, to make their homes more comfortable. While we were focused on contractors and that side of it, kind of on the supply side of things, we also wanted to make sure that we're increasing the knowledge and awareness of homeowners in the community on what they can do in their own homes to increase the energy efficiency of their homes. So with these, we were doing, again, we're starting with a lot of webinars. We got really good at webinars, so we record them all. They're all available. We take them on, renewables, electric vehicles, retrofits, and then we also did full day workshops with homeowners and all the way through to, we like to kind of tap into what's already happening in the community. So if there's expos, fairs that are happening, we make sure that we can be there and have a presence and share information. Those numbers didn't include the Climate Friendly Homes Tour. So we were asked by BC Hydro and the province to support the Climate Friendly Homes Tour, which was an initiative that was kicked off in Victoria, and they wanted to see how it could be spread out across the province. So with that, we were able to open up 35 homes across the Kootenays that different things, there's people over here that they want to show their siding and what they're doing on their envelope, through to folks that had rain barrels and solar photovoltaic systems. So there was 35 homeowners in 9 Kootenay communities, which is great, including Nelson and Preston, and we'll be doing that again this fall. We're really happy with what we were able to do in the first year, and we'll just be building that out this year. I mentioned some of the other opportunities that we were leveraging that were happening, kind of, again, with nominal in, needs for funding from our side, able to kind of build off of, Metrovan and their giant budgets and kind of some bigger projects that were happening. So with the new retrofit experience, that's basically it's a parcel level data set for all communities showing kind of what each home is, what retrofit packages those homes can have. So each of the 3 regional districts now has access to a very robust data set that they can use when they're developing programs and planning for their own communities. With Retrofit 101, that project now has some tools and resources. There's some videos, some resource sheets that are available on our website now for free. And that was really to kind of bridge that gap between contractors, realtors, and their clients, because, those are 2 core groups that have input into what homeowners are doing within their homes. So making sure that they had the knowledge and some information to share with their client base. And then finally, Accelerate 2.0, that was, it's actually $1 million funding project that we had through NRCan to increase the number of electric vehicle charging infrastructure across the Kootenays and, the number, I think 75 in total, including some at Selkirk, Whitewater, as well as Kootenay Family Services. So my apologies, I didn't say at the beginning. So Sherry has shared a report, I believe, with everybody. Thank you. So a lot of the details are here. 2 minutes on, so where are we going from here? So that was kind of what we have done, and this is just kind of what we're going to be doing for the next few years. So we've built up some great momentum now with contractors, tradespeople, building officials. When you start to see people come into more than one event and you start people asking like, hey, do you think you can kind of focus on this, really building on the needs in the building industry space? So we've already secured funding from Fortis and Hydro both. We keep going all through this year and well into 2025. So you can see there are 27 events already planned, kind of the first quarter, and just building up the momentum and going from there. There's one of the sessions we did again, kind of building up that home performance stakeholder count. So they were really focused on just getting it out to the masses through modules and in-person or online learning. I live with a tradesperson, my stepson's a tradesperson. I just kind of said from the beginning, I think we need to have some hands-on in-person opportunities. That's the way they like to learn. So we've been hosting some of these sessions now in Kessler and Nelson. But the big piece, so building off some learning. So we had an advisory committee, so that there was staff resources from each of the regional districts. So thank you for allowing them to participate. We had an advisory committee that was helping to kind of form and shape the project as we were moving along. And we're wanting to kind of build that out a little bit. I really enjoyed what Dino was saying, like we need to have more people, like who are the other players that we need to have there. So looking to build out who we have around the table from a social organization perspective, economic development organization. So we'll be doing some multi-sectoral work on that to really frame up some more of the work. And this is the one that really excites me, is kind of this contractors collective. As we've been working with the local building industry, realizing that there's a lot of barriers that they have. Their industry is changing dramatically around them in terms of policy, regulation, technologies, resources. And so looking to figure out what kind of wraparound supports we can provide to the contractors and building industry. There you go, that was fast.
It goes by fast.
Yeah, it does. Feel free to reach out any time. I'm not lead on this project anymore, which kind of pains me, but we can make sure to answer any questions.
Thank you. And Sherry Amata does have a report on the final report on this agenda, so we have seen that as well. Directors, do you have questions? Oh, sorry, Vandenberg, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. As an owner builder certified through BC Housing, because I just built my house, I'm fully aware of energy advisors and, but it's all required with BC building code. So my question is the Home Performance Contractors Network a separate entity from that of BCIT and BC Housing? Because that's a requirement that I would have to be able to build my own home, and contractors to be able to support me if I just choose to hire them. So I'm a little bit confused as to what area you're getting into and how are you getting there? Are you working in conjunction with? Because I've never heard of this before, but I've gone through a ton of training in order to do what I have to do. So can you, and as an example, the town of Crescent last year with Fortis put on a 2-day workshop with BCIT that was invaluable to contractors and homeowner builders. So I'm just trying to figure out where your fit is here. And how is it complementary to what's already out there, or is this additional too?
No, and thank you for that question, and apologies, it wasn't clear at the beginning. So we are really focused on the retrofit side of this equation, right? Because there's the energy step code, there's a zero carbon step code. For builders, there's CPT points you need to maintain registration. On the retrofit side of things, there's no regulation, there's no requirements, there's nothing telling folks kind of how to be doing energy retrofit. So yeah, so we're focused on the retrofit side of space, but yeah, so all of our courses, you get CPD points through. So we've aligned with BC Housing, but we're also aligning more with the Canada Home Builders Association, who's starting to kind of move a bit more into the retrofit space. Again, they were kind of solely focused on new builds to begin with and have moved over. So the Home Performance Contractors Network is focused on renovation and retrofit contractors.
Sorry, we're out of
It's
time and
relevant.
we do have one more question, so I'll just ask you to reach out directly to her.
For the benefit of the whole.
Director Main, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. This is all really good and exciting information, and I would like to point out one area of weakness is that people don't know who the contractors are. And I'll speak specifically about HVAC systems, heat pumps. Numerous people through the Slocan Valley, which is where I am. I'm constantly seeing posts, who does this, who does that, or my heat pump's malfunctioning, who can charge my system. So that's something that making that connection between the retrofit and maintenance factors and their potential clients is kind of lacking geographically through the Slocan Valley at least.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for that. And I didn't really kind of step into kind of the concierge stuff that we do as well. So, we do a lot of work with the city of Nelson and the regional district on kind of the REAP program, making sure that, because with all of these, in order for those participants in any of those programs to access funding and access, highly skilled contractors, they need to be registered. And really that is where they're heading in terms of the list of where people can go. So you can go to the Home Performance website, you can kind of find your area, you can find contractors working in that space. Because again, there's still a lot of narratives out there, and a lot of people that aren't wanting to work in this space. So, we do support a retrofit program with the city of Roslyn as a separate project from KSED. And with that, we're tied directly to the Home Performance Contractors Network certified, the registered trades there, making sure, because it's an increased value, like, right, there's no contractor that needs additional work right now, right? So it's really working with those that want to be involved in this space and figuring out what additional supports do they need to kind of build up them and scale up in the workforce.
Thank you. Vandenberg, there is another section on the agenda. We'll be addressing this report, so you can raise it there. Vandenberg?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jessica. I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry to both you and Damon. Our delegations are very short windows, but thank you for your breadth of information in a short period of
Reach out
time.
anytime if you have other questions.
Thank you.
Chair, should we go to gallery view with second presentation or something, or the last?
I'm not, that would be an Angela question.
It's
So-
after the top, for example.
So through the chair, in order to record this so that
Focus.
it's not just a grid for those watching. It is on Director Caseley right now at our end, but everyone is seeing the person that is speaking usually when they're attending online.
Right now, it's Director McLaren Co. and Director Cunningham who are center on the screen. Yeah, online. I guess it depends on your own settings. Okay, let's move along. We do have a big day ahead of us. Damon and Jessica, you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. We have a lot of fun. So number 3, business arising out of the minutes, 3.1 and 3.2, staff are recommending referring to next meetings. So we'll see those in June. 3.3 is a motion I had on the last agenda that I referred due to time constraints. So I'm going to address that one now. In speaking to it, I just wanted to give some background on this. So as you've all seen our quarterly report, we've all looked at our work plans. We've looked at how much we have to do. As a very large regional district with 20 independent jurisdictions and 11 electoral areas, we often bring things to the table without a full concept of everything that is occurring across the regional district. And that's not because we don't want to be aware, it's because we have so much in front of us that our own areas are predominantly our focus. So the motion I have in front of you today is to really address what are the metrics we would use to determine what gets put on the work plan as a board? And so a prioritization matrix is something that I know the CAO has already looked at other ones, RDEK has an interesting one. I think Kootenay Boundary just established one. So this motion would direct staff to look at what prioritization matrix are out there. What are the options to help us when we come forward as directors with projects? To look at what should we be considering if this is valuable to be on our work plans. It's also a way to try and, I wouldn't say curtail, but that's the word in my head, how much we get excited about when we want to put on the table. And so that is the purpose of this motion. And I do believe it would also address things that are outside of required things, such as the Bill 44 and all these other things the province is requiring us to do. It would also look at things that it's going to look at the things we have discretion on. Those that we don't, you're not necessarily going to have a prioritization matrix around because they're required. So that is the purpose of this motion. Happy to move it. I'm going to move the motion. Second.
I would like.
Discussion, absolutely. So it's on the floor. Jackman, and then was there another hand so far? I think Maine was seconding.
Oh, maybe it was just a second.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jackman.
So we can't list all of the among other factors, but two of the absolutely critical things I think need to be kept in mind. The length of time an item's been on the list. Even though it may not be a big priority, it may be much more important than as a group we understand, might have been on the list for 5+ years. The other side is how much work is there to do for some of these items to get across the finish line? I use my glib 5-minute rule, but sometimes there's not a lot of work to be done at some stage to move it ahead. And so before we say, well, that's not a regional or a board priority, just to say, but it's not a lot of work to just let it move ahead. And those have to be two key factors over and above the, our strategic plan and all the big priority stuff. Sometimes things are hung up on the little items, so.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion, looking at the table. I don't see anybody in chat. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you very much. Committees and commissions are received for information. Any corrections? We're good. With recommendations, electoral area A rec commission, Director Jackman, back to you.
Sure, I would move that recommendation. It's all vote the board approve payment of the following grants from Rec 9 Commission. S232, I guess it is S232, doesn't ring a bell, as listed.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Fran. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 4.22, Area H, New Denver, Silverton, Slocan Rec Commission. Pop, go ahead.
There's a direction to staff in there.
Yeah.
And I'll just read the direction so everybody's aware what the direction is. Staff received direction to allocate up to $15,000 for the purchase of a new treadmill or a comparable machine. And the recommendation that's listed in there after Silverton and area, it should be Area H.
Okay. You're moving that motion?
And I'm moving that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Hanegraaff. Discussion? In the room? Maine?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, the commission does have the funds for the new treadmill. And that their intention is to, order it along with the other order that's going in for the same machine for another, location.
It's a good point to make procedurally. That's why it's not at the agenda, because it was approved in your budget for 2024 anyhow, so you don't need board approval for. Yeah, so it's in your budget. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 4.2.3 Joint Resource Recovery Committee. Director Popoff, you chaired that meeting. Would you like to move these motions?
Thank you, Chair. I'll move recommendation number 1, that the board authorize staff to direct award a contract to the Nelson Leafs Hockey Society for the operation of a household hazardous waste drop-off depot for up to $81,240 annually to be paid from service S187 for the period September 1, 2024 to August 31, 2027, with the possibility of 2 one-year extensions upon mutual agreement. And further, that the chair and a corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents.
Moved, seconded, Newell, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried, your next motion.
So I'd like to move recommendation number 2, that the board authorize staff to enter into a service agreement with Green for Life Environmental Trail with the total estimated contract value of $342,476 with the annual contract price adjustments for the provision of recycled BC program material collection and transportation services at satellite recycling depots in the central and west subregions for the period of September 1st, 2024, August 31st, 2027, with the possibility of 2 one-year contract extensions upon mutual agreement. And further, that the chair and a clerk officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents. And further, that the cost be paid from service A117 Central Recycling and service A118 West Recycling.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Newell, thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 3.
Okay, number 3, just a question there. I'm reading all of these out for the recording purposes, or do I have?
You don't have to because they're actually on the agenda that's publicized. You can just do the general call.
Okay, recommendation number 3, very similar to recommendation number 2, Green for Life, and Environmental Cranbrook, with a total estimated contract value of $224,503. And further, that the chair and clerk officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents, and further, the cost be paid from service A116 East Recycling.
Thank you. Second, thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Recommendation number 4, that the board approve the RDCK enter into a contract with Waste Management of Canada Corporation for the total estimated contract value of $228,702 for the provision of collection, transportation, and marketing of industrial, commercial, and institutional cold, corrugated cardboards for the term September 1st, 2024, August 31st, 2026, with the possibility of 3-month contract extensions upon mutual agreement. And further, that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents. And further, the funds be paid from service A116 East Recycling and A117 Central Recycling and A118 West Recycling.
Thank you. Second, thank you, Jackman. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Recommendation number 5, that the board approve a direct award contract for the McCusk landfill operations and maintenance with Arrow Lakes Aggregates Limited until December 31st, 2024, with an option to extend the contract month to month thereafter, and that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to sign necessary documents. And further, the cost be paid from service 188 West Resource Recovery.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Director Weatherhead. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Recommendation number 6, that the board direct staff to issue a request for proposal for a new site maintenance contract for the McCusk landfill site to commence once landfilling operations have ceased.
Sorry, this participant's only waited. Do we have a second? Thank you. And sorry, were you pointing to a question? No? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And
Oh,
recommendation,
sorry. Vandenberg, was that on the last one?
Nope, next one.
Next one? Can you move it and then I'll ask you to put you on the speakers list? Okay, go ahead, pop off and then we'll go to Vandenberg.
thank you, Chair. Recommendation number 7, that the board authorize staff to enter into a service agreement with Leduc Biodiesel Energy to establish a 1-year cooking oil and used cooking oil upcycling pilot project at the Creston landfill.
You want to second that? DeBoon, Vandenberg, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think this is a great plan or program and a pilot that's quite worthy. I will bring forward that I think this should be deferred until staff can verify what the end use products are that will be made. This is a cradle to grave type of a situation. This is a pilot, so then we are now within the cradle to grave. But yet the report did not confirm what the end use products are of the cooking oil. And I think that it'd be wise for us to have that documented, so that it could eventually, so that no liability is there to haunt us, because that was not clear yesterday. It's not part of the report, and I think is necessary before we embrace the pilot, which I think is a great idea. But that missing piece of information is necessary for that report.
Julie, you stood up. I assume you have a response?
Yeah, we have a little bit of new information since yesterday. We reached out to the company. They identified Quick Forms out of Calgary as their distributor. I've done a little bit of research this morning in regards to the overall clear identification. We have a phone number that we have not been reaching out yet or able to reach out to. But we have some additional information that indicates that they do have a distribution network. So that while we don't have the full cradle to grave accounting of this, but we have some information in regards to the distribution network.
Thank you. Director Vandenberg, procedurally, if you would like to motion to do a referral, you can do that to next month. If you get a second, we'll debate the proprietary referral.
I think it is wise for us to refer. Just,
Are you making that motion?
I am, thank you.
Is there a second to refer this to June? Tierney refers it, or sorry, seconds it. On referral only, any discussion? Newell?
Is discussion the same as asking if there's impacts on the referral motion? Does it set a
Yes.
project back? Is it?
You can discuss the proprietary referral, so time-wise that qualifies. If you'd like to ask staff, does this delay? That's essentially your question, is this gonna make an impact?
Yeah, so asked.
Julie?
Like I said, we just had a delayed start of the program. The only other option I could see is that in the motion, you direct staff to verify cradle to grave the ultimate use of these materials so that we only enter into the pilot subject to confirming conclusively where these materials end up.
Did that answer your question, Newell?
Yeah, thank you.
Vandenberg, go ahead.
And I'm okay with that addition to the original motion. I would remove my referral.
Referral. As the seconder on the referral, Director Tierney, do you accept that to remove it? Okay, Ange, does that work?
A withdrawal, but I will need.
The wording on an amendment? Okay. So subject to motion then is what you're making. So you're making an amendment with a subject to, we need the language.
That staff confirmed the end product and end use of the materials collected by this company.
Yes. Thank you.
What's your amendment, Director Vandenberg?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Second, Jackman, okay. I'll just make sure we got the language on that. Okay, we're good? Can you read the amendment, Angela, just to make sure we all know we're on the same page?
Yeah, that the board authorized staff to enter into a service agreement with the Duke Biodiesel Energy to establish a one-year cooking oil and used cooking oil upcycling pilot project at the Creston landfill, subject to staff confirming the end use of the collected product.
Thank you, we got the language right, you're good with that. Further discussion on the amendment, Hewitt.
I guess my discussion would be through the chair,
what is the acceptable end usage, right? It just says it needs to be confirmed. It doesn't say what the result of that is, like, you know, what makes it a no-go as far as staff is concerned, and would that actually address what Director Vandenberg was intending? Because you still wouldn't know.
Julie, go ahead.
Can I lend my interpretation of it? We had yesterday discussion about two products. One was biodiesel, the other one was the corn oil, which seems to be the one that is more confirmed than the biodiesel. And that would be the two acceptable products that we would be focusing on.
Okay, we're good. Further discussion on the amendment page?
Picking up on the comment there. We're looking for a product that has less environmental impact than leaving into the landfill itself, right? Like aside from these very specific prescriptive uses, we're looking for something that is having a smaller impact on the environment and going back out into the world than just going into the dump. I don't know how to frame that in the language. That's the big tent. We want this.
I think direction to staff is clear that that's what we're looking for,
Yeah,
because it was the discussion yesterday, that was the bulk of it. So I think staff is pretty clear on less environmental impact is the goal, not more.
Yeah.
Uli's nodding, so does that work? I don't think we need it in the motion, is my point. Staff
Yeah.
understands the goal.
I just want to be clear. We don't want to be prescriptive that we only accept these kinds of products being made of. Because that's way too prescriptive.
We will come back with the information that we received, and if we have any doubt that these criteria are not fulfilled, we will wait with the pilot for them on next meeting and further down.
Because this is a pilot, right?
Yes.
This is for us to figure it out.
Yeah,
Perfect. Thanks.
okay. Good work. So on the amendment, I have no other speakers. All those in favor on the amendment? Anybody opposed? Thank you. Motion as amended. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Thank you. Number 8, back to you, Director Papa.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Recommendation number 8, there was a resolution number 6924 that was passed, and the recommendation is to amend that resolution, which reads that the board authorize the renewal of the lease contract with the Village of New Denver for the New Denver Recycling Depot for the term of June 14, 2020 to June 13, 2025. And further, that the cost be paid from service number K118 West Sub-Region Recycling. And further, that although no rental fees are charged by the Village of New Denver, the RDCK will be responsible for utilities charges incurred. And further, that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the same.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, DeBoon. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Well, that's it for you at this time. Good.
I think I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, for right now. 4.3.1, membership for Balfour Water Services is Dr. Grant.
Thank you. That the board appoint the following individual to the Balfour Water Service Community Advisory Committee for a term to end December 31st, 2026, being May week.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Hewitt. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Grandview, that's also you as well. Go ahead.
That the board appoint the following individual to the Grandview Water Services Community Advisory Committee for a term to end December 31st, 2026, Heather Valerius.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Pop off. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Area B Advisory Planning and Heritage Commission.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The board appoint the following individual to the Area B Planning and Advisory Planning and Heritage Commission for a term to end December 31st, 2026, Petra Law. And further, that the board send a letter to outgoing member Miriam Chatwin, thanking her for her service.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Jackman, thank you. Discussion? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Tierney.
I just wanted to mention Miriam did a wonderful job with us. Unfortunately, her sister and brother-in-law were involved in a terrible accident at Kitchener a month ago. And Miriam's now caring for the 3 children left behind.
Oh my God.
And, so she had to resign.
Condolences to her family. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Can we include some condolences in that thank you letter? Is that appropriate? Okay, thank you. 4.3.4 electoral area A. Go ahead, Jackman.
I move the board send a letter to outgoing member Dee Gilbertson, thanking her for her service with Area A Rec 9 Commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. South Spokane Commission of Management. Dr. Hall, I'll back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A bit of an explanation. This is an old bylaw that requires that the alternate be allocated to the commission member. So therefore, I move that the board appoint the following individuals as alternates to the South Spokane Commission of Management for a term to end in December 31st, 2024. Christy Mintz, who is an alternate for Kathy Loxton, Greg Vinstra, alternate for Peter Wood, Ian McGovern, alternate for Mandy Chutskoff, Jen Houghton, alternate for George Mintz, Derek Livin, alternate for Stacy Troop, Wendy Niemenicken, alternate for Ben Yerby.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Maine. Discussion? Vandenberg, go ahead.
I'm just curious as to understanding the nature of South Spokane Commission of Management. It's an interesting, it's great when a lot of people will step in and help out as alternates, but how far does the alternate need to go with the other committees that we're responsible for? So what is different about the South Spokane Commission of Management that our other committees, we don't appoint alternates?
Through the chair of the bylaw. It would be the original, when the bylaw was created, there was a desire at the time to make sure that there was alternates appointed. And this one very specifically, each alternate has to be appointed to the original appointee, the original commission member, which is, I think it's unique across the RD that we actually have to, on a commission like this, assign the alternate to the individual. So it really is about the bylaw. And then at Director Popoff's discretion, if he wanted to bring that to the board for consideration for amendment or updating, he could do so. Yeah.
Go ahead, Popoff.
Yeah, thank you. And this reverts back to our list of priorities. We did request many years ago, and I can't remember how many years ago, for the bylaw to be looked at and amended to basically remove the alternates, be allocated to each director. And that's why before moving the recommendation, I kind of prefaced that because it is an old bylaw.
So the work to update bylaws has been a long-standing, there's a lot of bylaws to go through and they come through as a priority. So this is on the list and it would be amongst many of our older bylaws to update. So it is on the list, we'll get there. And for now, we have to follow what it prescribes. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Town of Creston appointments. Would someone like to move that motion to ratify?
That's a recommendation from the town of Preston appointing the following. For the Regional District of Central Kootenay, Director Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alternate Director Council Dumas. For Preston Valley Services Committee, Representative Mayor DeBoon, alternate Councilor Dumas. East and Joint Resource Recovery Commission, Representative Mayor DeBoon, alternate Councilor Houghton. Arrow Creek Water Treatment and Supply Commission, Representative Councilor Dumas, alternate Councilor Holland. The Regional District of Central Kootenay Water Services Committee, Representative Councilor Dumas and alternate Councilor Holland, be ratified.
Thank you. Second discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Nelson Public Library. This is area E. Yeah, go ahead.
That the recommendation from the Nelson Public Library appointing Kathy Spears as a non-voting area E trustee and representative, and Lisa Tremblay as the alternate representative to be ratified.
Thank you. Do we have second? Thank you, Jackman. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And as per our usual practices, until we get our procedures bylaw updated, I'll take a motion to postpone verbal reports until item number 11. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Really hope we get to do the verbal reports. I think we're 3 months now, so you'll still only have 2 minutes and a lot to say. All those in favor? Opposed, carried, thank you. Moving into correspondence, 5.1 has been received for information. Thank you so much. Jackman, did you want to speak to it?
But maybe briefly, if we all did manage to address
Yes.
the Yakinuki's request, Tom Preston was on top of it.
Yeah.
You'll see under community development grants, the A, B, and C have also followed contributions as requested.
Thank you. Quick work on that one. Vandenberg, go ahead.
Just curious as to why it took so long to get into our attention.
We
This
only,
is dated February 28th, and the intended application is in a couple of days. And this just came to my attention days ago.
came to our attention the day
Sure,
before
it
that.
came to the RD the week before that, so I don't know where it got lost along the way, but we received it from Yakinuki the Wednesday before agenda prep, yeah, the week before agenda prep.
So this is just an unfortunate anomaly.
I think so, it just got lost somewhere, or they missed sending it to us, they had sent a general email out and then missed this in some way, but yeah, we did not see it until the week before.
I think it was agenda prep, we saw it, which I initiated the notion of like, let's make sure you guys all have it. Daboon, did you want to speak to
I
that?
just wanted to add that it came to town Preston on our town council agenda quite some time ago. So there must have been some error in getting it to RDCK because we did deal with it on council meeting quite some time ago. I guess we assumed that everything was in order, and obviously somewhere along the line, well,
There's a lot of moving pieces, some things get missed, but thank you to the directors for acting so quickly. Less than 24 hours, you all have responses in, so thank you for that. All right, 5.2, back to Preston. Do you want to move a motion on that one, Daboon?
sure. That the board send a letter of support to the village of Preston for the applications to the inspector of municipalities to create a municipal owned housing corporation.
Second, Jackman, discussion. I assume, I believe they've already sent some language around it, so we'll know what to include in that letter. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. For communications, if you'd like to pull one, please give me the number you want to pull. Looking around the table first.
Yes.
Which one?
Oh, boy. There is.
Do you know which number?
The next three I've got notes on, but I don't know which one I want to talk about. But my apologies to the chair. There's just so much to prepare for in these meetings.
Well, there's no actions taken out of any of these. If you want to discuss or you want to take an action. Other than that, you can reach out to staff or the people who sent the letter. Looking to the rest of the room, is there any items that need to be pulled for action? Director Main?
Yeah, number 6.1, the letter from Ministry of Housing.
Yes, go ahead.
I just would like to comment on it that there are so many really small communities within our own jurisdiction that even the fourplex is unattainable. And so the rental protection program that this falls under still does not address rural needs for development of new housing. And I'm going to be speaking also at the national level, PHCN, about the fact that this, it leaves the majority of communities throughout Canada unable to access the funding because we can't build fourplexes. We'd be lucky to be able to do it, to find a duplex, to find a house to renovate into a duplex. So that's just the comment I wanted to make on the letter about that.
Thank you. Back to you, Vandenberg. Is it on the same item?
Yes, it is. Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
And to that point, that my member just made, this is a double-edged sword. It's one thing for rent protection. It's another thing to discourage future investment. We're seeing that it seems to be geared towards municipalities being the ones that have to find ways of develop housing and are excluding investment community, entrepreneurship, and that sort of thing. So as a owner of a rental, I don't have any protection. And so that's what and so if you're gonna be commenting to a group, there's a double-edged sword here that has to be part of that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else on the list, I will indicate that, for 6.2, there's another item on the agenda that, we will be addressing regarding the Edna legislation and working directly on a working group that was successful, that request. So I'm not gonna talk about it now, but it's in the, there's an action on that. So just noting we have a bit more discussion on that item. Okay, and thank you, Director Jackman. I just want to note you will be able to attend the annual meeting, which is usually in the fall, for the International Joint Commission on Kootenay Lake. The rise, the commencement of the spring rise is an annual letter we will receive. Usually they have a meeting in the fall. They're having it in the spring this year. I will be on a plane at that time, so thank you, Director Jackman. He will ensure he's at that meeting and bring his notes back. Okay, thank you. Number 7 for information accounts payable. Any questions? Graham, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. So just one thing popped out to me, which was $90,000 for Kootenay Employment Services Society. I'm just wondering what those services are.
Through the chair, that's economic development for the Creston area, sub-region, so EB&C and Creston share in that contract.
All right. More questions? All right, bylaws 2576, Regional District Central Kootenay Procedure Bylaws. So the way this one's going to work is this is to bring to you at this time, staff are seeking response. Wait, let's just make sure I got the motion right. Direct staff to repeal and replace procedure bylaw, and that the board provide their input to staff by June 10th. And then we will see another draft in July. The anticipation is that at the August board meeting, we are adopting the procedure bylaw. This has been about a 2-year, sorry. So, October. Angela, go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, we'll bring a draft of the bylaw in July. If we need to receive any more comments at that point, we can open it up to more comments from the directors and bring it back in August again. If we have no more comments, then we would be putting it out to the public as part of our legislative requirement. So we would be putting some advertising in the newspapers saying that we are going to be repealing and replacing our procedure bylaw. And then from there, after we've done that aspect of things, we would then bring it back to the board for October, I believe. Yeah, it's a bit of a procedure.
And through the chair, because of the exhaustive process of actually amending or repealing or replacing this bylaw, please give it some good thought. Take your time to go through it. If there's thoughts you have, please provide them back. If we need more time, we'll take it, because we don't want to be doing this every 6 to 8 months. It's a lot.
If you'll note, I've got Vandenberg on the list. If you'll note the list of things that staff has captured, consent agenda is one that Director Page raised, I think, at the beginning of your term. And so that is finally getting into this, but that is why it doesn't happen on a frequent basis. We're kind of accumulating the things change, and then we'll do the whole process. Vandenberg?
Yes, and to that point, thank you to the chair. This is our opportunity. We don't want to be doing this time and time again. But I do know that there is sort of a collection of things that have been gathered, as suggested by various members around the room. I don't know if that's in here.
It is.
And is that the wholesome? That's the whole of it? Because I don't want to miss something that we've talked about and then go, oh darn, should have talked about that.
So in the report, it was outlined, I believe it was a chart that indicated all the different things that have accumulated over the last 2 years. And so that chart outlines everything that staff has collected as direction. And then if there's further things, that's the whole process we're going through now. Directors can reach out to staff and say, and then there's this consideration or whatever your input is. Popoff, go ahead.
And thank you, Chair. My question's been asked and answered.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move the motion? Thank you, Paige, McLaren Co. Further discussion? And by all means, if you have questions on what this might look like, or you read through it and you have more, reach out to staff. This is an iterative process at this time. Lockwood, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make note that June 10th is right at the end of FCM. So if you're gonna make, it's in the next week or so, 10 days.
Or I'm sure your computers will be with you in Calgary.
Yeah, lots of.
I was
It's-
reading until 10 last night,
Yeah.
audited plans.
Yeah,
But yes, we have time. It is important to note we have time, as Angela indicated. If we come back in July and there's still more, we will get it right. So ideally, you get some input in by June 10th, and they've got some concrete work to move forward with. We need more time, we'll take it. Okay?
Yes, and the version that's gonna be coming back to the directors will be redlined, and it will show what is being removed, what is being added, and things like that. So it won't be just a document that is in black print. You're gonna see the changes that we've made, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Hewitt, go ahead.
Just a quick question, that will be emailed out tomorrow or later today, the copy of the bylaw, or do we?
It's on the agenda.
No, I don't see it appended to that.
Oh, sorry. So the report on there outlines everything that's going to change. The red line bylaw will be received in June to see what all of the input is, plus the changes on there. So read the report on what will change. If you want to read the procedure bylaw itself, it's on our website. We can circulate it.
Well, that's just.
We can submit it.
Yeah.
I can send out the link. It's probably best for me to send the link on the website than for me to try to put that document in an email.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Paige.
Sorry, I know we want to keep moving here. Just for my clarity, the section of the report that speaks to the recording notes, public notices, and hybrid meetings, those are coming somewhat separately for consideration?
Through the chair, yes, but we try to incorporate the feedback requested into the same document, so we get it all at once. So those items there regarding that recording votes, the public notice and the hybrid meetings, if you've got any commentary there, please provide it to us. It likely will form part of the procedure bylaw in terms of a reference potentially to another policy,
Right.
but we do want feedback on those items as well.
But we're gonna deal with those three in their own.
Through the chair, yes. Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Because those are actual policies that'll be developed. So a lot of times procedure bylaws referencing a policy, we're actually in the midst of creating those. So
Great.
trying to capture them all. So the procedure bylaw doesn't need to be amended after we adopt those policies. Good, okay. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Sorry, it's just checking. No one's in chat. Okay. And let's take our morning break. And then we'll go into West Waste Management bylaw. Sorry, Anne, I should have went.
No, that's okay.
So my.
Make an amendment.
Who's doing what over here?
Is that control that in?
That's me.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Directors, please take your seats. Thank you. All right, let's go. We have quorum. So we are on item 8.3, West Waste Management Subregion Refuse. Director Popoff, you wanted to speak to this one or move the motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll move the first recommendation that the third reading of the West Management Subregion Refuse disposal recycling service, McCusp and Spokane transfer stations, loan authorization bylaw number 2962 be rescinded.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Paige. And did you want to speak to what that change is?
So now, on a second recommendation, I have a question through the staff. What were the amendments?
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, it's just rescinding right now. Yeah, my apologies. So let's do that and then we'll ask your question. Discussion. Go ahead, Ange, on this one or the next?
Yeah, so through the chair, it was a minor change, but it was a change that the ministry brought forward. So before we used to have the total costs of the McCusp and Spokane, the cost of each one of the transfer stations in brackets. They wanted us to remove that, so that we didn't show the exact cost of either of those facilities. And then the other thing was, this was my error. was for the sum, we had to provide the total of the actual project, which is the $2,681,722. And I had accidentally put the amount that we were looking for, borrowing as that sum. So I had to change that. So that was why it was rescinded. But those were the two, minor amendments, but not minor in the sense of cost.
Further discussion? This is on the first motion to rescind. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the next motion, go ahead, Papa.
Yeah, I will, move that motion that the West Waste Management, sub-region refuse disposal recycling service, McCusker and Slocan transfer station, loan authorization, bylaw number 2962/2024 be read a third time and as amended.
Thank you. Weatherhead, discussion?
Yeah, I like
Go
to
ahead.
speak. Yeah, I did review the bylaw last night and exactly what mentioned by, Angela, those are the two things that I found that was different in the bylaw. I just wanted it confirmed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none in the room, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Uli. If you can shut that door, thank you very much. Bylaw 2933, define areas F and H curbside collection service.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Newell. Discussion, or sorry, second, Popoff, discussion. Popoff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The recommendation reads, no further action be taken with respect to defined areas F and H curbside collection service establishment bylaw 2933/2023. And one of my constituents did ask me, does that mean that bylaw does not go forward? It's basically rescinded,
Through the chair, not rescinded. It stops at third reading.
third reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd
Thank you for
rescind
the
if it was
clarification.
adopted. Yep. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And 8.5 bylaw 2934, area J curbside.
I move that no further action be taken with respect to defined area J curbside collection service establishment bylaw number 2934/2023.
Thank you, seconded Graham. Discussion? Democracy in action?
Democracy in action. I will say that, the turnout was good and the decision was clear. And I'm glad for those two things. Even if it's not the result that I personally, had hoped for. And I do thank the staff for the work they did on this. But at the end of the day, I believe that, you know, with everything going up, people just couldn't absorb one more cost, and that's what it really came down to in this case, and so, now it's over.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
I think it is interesting. It noted in the report, the resource recovery plan process, which was pre to this current term. So not everyone may have been aware, but when we did those surveys at the time to assess, there was a pretty good indication. So it's a good process to go through to do the general, like, is there an interest before you jump to a referendum? And that's just democracy in action. Things changed over the years. So that's, here we are.
And, you know what? Maybe if this was 6 years ago, it would have been a different outcome, but just everything has gone up, and I think people just looked at the price and said, I can't take on
Yeah.
one more thing.
Fair enough. That's what referendums are about. Thank you. Further discussion? No one online. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, 9.1.1 policy 500-0110 parkland dedication. We have a motion. We've looked at this one a few times. Do we have questions or a motion to start? Lockwood, go ahead.
I was just trying to, because thank you through the chair, when we add joint resource at the last minute, I write down the page number before Wednesday. So can't actually find the page number, so I apologize. I don't know if there is anybody on staff.
Joe's on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Joe's on.
First record.
Corey's on Tuesday.
Go ahead and,
The one part that's, and I'm not sure where it is BC Parkland acquisition best practice. Wherever it was on 245, page 245. Should it not still say to bring it back to the board of directors once a decision from staff?
you want Corey to take that one? I saw Corey, you turn on your camera, go ahead. Oh. Under
Hi, thank you through the chair. I'm just navigating to the parkland dedication policy here. And I see,
I believe it's under guideline number 1.
You found what you were looking for then?
Yeah, it says as amended from time to time to provide relevant guidance in unique circumstances. To me, that's saying that staff will decide how, if it's going to change. And I'm just wondering if it should be, so if there's a thought on staff's behalf of a change, would it be the best practice, because this is about talking about best practice, that it actually comes back for a final decision to the board of directors?
Go
yes,
ahead, Corey.
through the chair. So if it's land, it will always be coming back to the board of directors under section 2 of the proposed policy. If it's cash in lieu, we can certainly, I don't think it's overtly pointed out in the policy, but we can certainly add that in to have that considered if it is a reduced cash in lieu amount that's being considered.
Can I clarify, are you asking if there's a change to the policy? Does the policy come back to the board?
No.
Go ahead, Stuart.
So through the chair, the guideline 1 refers to RDCK staff may also consider the province of BC's parkland acquisition best practices guide as amended from time to time to provide relevant guidance in unique circumstances. And Director Lockwood was asking whether or not, if staff considers those, that policy in those unique circumstances, does that require the board to discuss and approve something that might be outside of this policy, because staff has considered that BC parkland acquisition best practices guide. That was the question that Director Lockwood had. And I think Corey said we could definitely include that.
Yeah.
That if we do consider items from that guide, that it's brought back to the board for
Thank you.
approval.
Okay. Do you want to move the motion, or Drackman, go ahead?
Something that jumped out on me when I looked at this again, it's under item 10, this, for cash in lieu of parkland dedication, BC assessment value will be used, except if you don't agree. And then it goes through the appraisal process, which will always be to the favor of the landowner in a rural area generally, because they're usually lower appraisals. We went through exactly this, big folder all to get our postage stamp toehold down in Crawford Creek before we acquired 28 parcels. I thought it was a lot of unnecessary work. And why don't we just say it's BC assessment value, period? If you don't agree with BC assessment, you should have appealed it and had it adjusted. And every year you have that opportunity. Yet when we come to say, hey, your parcel's worth 500,000, 5% of it is this, or the amount of land or whatever, they want to appeal it then. I mean, this is a place where we just save us a lot of work and saying, hard line, our policy is BC assessment. You didn't appeal it, too bad, that's the number. Because it was a lot of work for one little postage stamp parcel. I don't know how much work we'd save by just say BC assessment, period. But I don't want to hold this up, it's, maybe it's a placeholder for the future. But everywhere we can trim staff work and this iterative process, we should.
Just checking if Corey or anyone wanted to respond to that. Corey, go ahead.
Yes, through the chair. And I discussed this with Mark Crow, and perhaps Manager Kiriko has a bit more context that could be added. There was one circumstance recently. I think along the
Sorry, 1 second. Joe, can you mute your computer? Thank you. Sorry, Corey, go ahead.
no problem. There was one situation that Mark Crow and I discussed along, I think it was either the Goat River, where there was land that was ALR land and it was dramatically undervalued. So if we just went with the BC assessed value, the cash in lieu contribution wouldn't have reflected what the actual land itself was. So I think that we put that in there to kind of address those anomalies that might exist in BC assessments data. But certainly we would be looking to use that assessed value as much as we possibly can to reduce that staff workload associated with this.
Further, or
Well, is it appropriate to say just stroke everything after assessed value of land will be used? Period. Stroke the rest out, staff has less work to do. Somebody wants to argue with this? It's not an option.
I would,
I don't care if we get more or less money. It's the staff workload that I'm worried about. And all of these things, we provide all these options, we keep going in iterative loops and not get to the end and move on to the next step.
so Mark wants to respond. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, through the chair, the example Corey alluded to was a 63-acre parcel that recently sold market value for $250,000. The assessed value was $2,000. So that if there was a parkland dedication on a property such as that, we would want to have the ability to say $2,000 assessed value is not sufficient, and we don't agree to that, and bump that to a market appraisal. So there's these nuances that Corey's alluding to where it may be in the regional district's best interest to have this clause to trigger market appraisal.
I got a speakers list. Do you want to hear and then we'll come
It's
back?
$10,000 difference. It's not worth our effort for that example.
Okay,
Not worth the effort.
pop off, go ahead.
So a question through the chair is, when we talk about assessed value, that is, let's say, for example, that 28-acre parcel or whatever, that's the assessed value of the parcel before subdivision? Or is it the assessed value of each individual lot after subdivision?
Mark or Corey?
Through the chair, it would be before subdivision, I believe, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it would be before subdivision.
Before.
Okay.
Do you have other people on the speakers list? Okay. There's no one else on the speakers list. I'll come back to you, Director Jackman. I don't know that we would need to make that as amendment, but would you like to propose that, and we'll see if anybody disagrees with removing that clause?
I will propose it because we need to start streamlining staff process in my work. So under item 10, we would read BCSS value of the land will be used, period. One little simplification.
Thank you. So
Read
I know,
everything else.
okay, so on that note, and we're not moving this as an amendment, we're just going to discuss this one aspect of changing that. So Paige, go ahead.
No, it's good seconding, but I guess if it's not in the real, then.
Newell?
All due respect, I think staff can decide whether they put any energy into it or not. And so I'm just not sure that, I think a lot of thought has gone into it by staff. There are examples where it could be off, and leaving staff the flexibility to look at the proposal. I think I would move that it stay as it is.
Okay. Just procedurally, would you prefer this as a motion? Because it sounds like we might be in different places with it. Is it cleaner that way?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can move the policy as amended. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just take that as a motion. Paige seconded it. So now we're gonna speak to it as a motion, and that is that we would be removing, we would just stop it at the BC assessment as there's a discretion by staff to look for market appraisal. So that's the motion on the table right now. Lockwood, go ahead.
I'm gonna vote in favor, because I believe that if we're really serious about people developing land to be able to get more houses out there, this is one way that can help them. Is by, so if they have a parcel of land that somebody can take the money to subdivide and go for, then go for it. So I'm in favor.
Cunningham, go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with
Director Newell, but it's an easy thing for staff to do, and I think just looking at using words like base assessment or having it assessed, if you go for a mortgage, and even if you've had a mortgage before, the bank or credit union always says, no, you have to have a reassessment of your property. So you pay the $500 to have a reassessment of your property, and that's an up-to-date thing, and I think that to do that kind of thing is easy, and it's not the kind of thing, I don't think it'll save us a great deal of staff time. Staff knows about these things and can say, yeah, that looks good, and just let it go. Using the word, just the basic word assessment is fine. I don't like BC assessment or anything like that, because let staff make that decision as they always have. I don't think we're gonna save a great deal of time, and in fact, when it comes to the individual areas, I'm not sure that it will save us a great, I don't see the saving, I don't see the value in the proposal.
Thank you.
So I speak again, so.
Paul?
Yeah, echoing what Director Cunningham has said, ALR land is generally pretty hard to subdivide. And it's valued at half the value of assessed, actually market value of it. So discretion should be there for staff to take a look at that. If that parcel is assessed at in the ALR at, let's say, $20,000, and yet on the market, it would be double that amount. So I would stay with their, I'm speaking against the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Graham, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair and staff. Like, how often does this happen? Are we talking about something that regularly happens or something that's very, very not happening often?
Corey or Mark, whoever. Mark, go ahead.
Through the chair, this is designed, the market appraisal would be very infrequent. The default would be to try to reach agreement on assessed value. These would be the exceptions. And, one of the reasons in there is this is having a mechanism for dispute resolution is important. So this would be infrequent, and we would be defaulting to assessed value for almost all of the reports that you see. It would be generally the difference between on a market property versus assessed value. Generally, assessed value has been lower than market value, so that it probably is in favor of almost every application that comes forward that for the applicant to be satisfied with assessed value.
So it's that mechanism in either dispute or severe difference that they have a backup
That's right.
approach to manage.
And that's consistent with the province's parkland acquisition best policies guideline. And it's consistent with the Local Government Act to have that mechanism for resolution.
Supplemental.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Supplemental, like, what are other regional districts in the area doing? Do they have the same conflict resolution in their policy?
Through the chair, we looked at quite a few other regional district policies for those that exist. I'll also note that there are more than a handful of regional districts in the province that don't have policies. They just go by the default of the Local Government Act and the provincial manual. I didn't encounter any local government that didn't or that deviated from the best practices manual.
And this is in the best practices.
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion. Okay, all those in favor? One, two.
On the amendment?
It's not an amendment, it's a motion. It's a single motion because we haven't moved the policy motion. We just decided to do it as a motion because we were getting some debate over it. So it's one motion, and it's that
The policy though.
to amend the policy. Yeah, sorry, it's not an amendment to a motion, it's amendment to the policy. Sorry about that.
So Chair, just point of order, please.
Yes,
Could it be read so we all understand what we're voting on?
sure.
Thanks.
Angela, go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, that policy number 500-01-07 Parkland Dedication Policy be amended to read the following under section 10. for cash in lieu of parkland dedication, the BC assessed value of land
Be
be used.
Period. So it removes the clause of being able to have a market assessment should there be dispute or other issues to consider. Is that good, Director David Off? Got it? Okay, great. Everybody know where we're at? Good, okay. All those in favor? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I don't see Kaisley, so I assume he's not voting.
He's left.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Jessica's back. Okay, those opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Motion fails. Thank you. So the motion to adopt the policy. Thank you, Newell. Second. Thank you, Popoff. Further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that failed. Those 3. Thank you. And the next one to rescind the previous motion. Thank you, Paige. Second. Thank you, Graham. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Advisory Committee on Emergency Management Regulations. So when we talked about correspondence, there was a letter there from Minister-in-Law. This is the item I indicated we could dive a little deeper if we wanted to. So before the chair and CAO forum and some of the previous communications the board has given, the board did support myself as chair and CAO in those conversations to request that there be a working group on the Emergency Disaster Management Act and how it's implemented. This is what this is. They have said yes. So this motion looks at supporting 1 staff person and then 1 elected official to be to solicit an expression of interest. It's not automatic that you're on the committee. UBCM and the province will determine that. And so, Jackman.
Yeah, I would move the recommendation with yourself, the Chair Watson, submitting the expression of interest.
Thank you. I would accept that nomination.
I'll second.
Second, thank you. Doesn't mean we can't have others put their name forward and then we would have a vote if that's the case. Jackman, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you've tracked this as well or better than any of us, because you've made all the Bowen Law briefings, you've been pretty well, so.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Further discussion or questions on the letter, questions on anything in there? Yes, please.
Yeah, through the chair, although this is a good step forward in terms of what they want to do with the committee, they are only accepting 10 people from across the province.
Yeah.
And it is a combined committee, municipalities, regional districts, First Nations. So I worry about representation. I worry about the impact on regional districts being front and center. So hopefully that'll be a discussion with the scope of the committee at the outset to say, do we have the right mix of people? And is the voice being heard, particularly from regional districts where there's a significant impact?
Thank you. And I didn't know, is Dan on the line? Is there anything you wanted to share with us, Dan?
Through the chair, Dan can't make it. He did send me some notes, but
You covered them.
discussion, I can, yeah, I think I have the questions come up.
Thank you. Further discussion. I would keep you appraised if I was accepted. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Myself a note, I got a written expression of interest today. Okay, thank you. 9.1.3 contract award electoral areas I and J. David Off or Hannah Graff?
I'll go.
Thank you.
That the RDCK board approved contract from May 16th, 2024, terminating June 1st, 2025, at the base rate of $15,600 for dog control services, covering electoral areas I and J, Pam Guile, to commence immediately and end on July 31st, 2025, and that cost be paid from S-180 and S-181 animal control services for I and J, and further that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Director David Off. Discussion? Looks good online. Anyone in the room? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And you want to move it on? Go ahead.
that the regional board appoints Pamela Dial and alternate JC Soriat as dog control officers for enforcement of the RDCK dog control bylaw number 2388, 2014.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Director Davidoff. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I move that resolution 147/24 being that board directs staff to repost request for proposal for dog control officer contract for animal control area I, Brilliant Service 180, and animal control area J, Robson Raspberry Service 181 be rescinded.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Director Davidoff. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, 9.1.4, Jordan, I saw you come in the room. Did you want to speak to your report or just wait for questions?
Wait for questions, please, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Questions for Jordan, or are we ready for the motion? Jacqueline, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, we had the advantage of a bit of a conversation around at Crest Valley Services Committee because we were looking at actions to assist our CDP, if nothing else, with dangerous dogs, threatening dogs, nothing around patrols, nothing around noise and barking dogs. At that meeting, I thought you had very good points raised, Jordan, about we should amend either our nuisance or noise bylaw to very specifically address the barking dogs there. So that wherever we go with this, that we can at least take the barking dogs part of it out of this equation because they're quite different. And just wondering if through the chair, you could share your ideas. Is it quite simple to do that? Something we could have amended in a month or two?
May I approach, Chair?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have some notes I'd just like to speak to as quickly as possible. So, dog control in the RDCK as it exists now was first set up the use of contractors because it was from a staffing perspective, there was only one perhaps two bylaw officers, so then we entered into contracting practices. When I was hired by the RDCK, one of the things I was tasked with doing was developing the ability to gather stats so we can make data-led decisions. And so when the contracts were coming up, we started looking at what was happening in dog control. And frankly, the statistics I was seeing didn't lead me to believe or led me to believe that we weren't delivering this service in the most financially responsible manner that we could. So I looked at stats throughout the regional district. And essentially, when it comes to dog control, the main activities, barking dogs, dogs at large, dangerous and aggressive dogs, and patrols. That's what we're doing right now. We're outsourcing a high-risk activity, in my opinion. Dog attacks generally can translate into a lawsuit, and certainly lawyers look to see who has money. And so it's inevitable that the RDCK could be pulled into some kind of a dispute. For that reason, I feel that it's very important for us to have competent staff investigating these kind of more serious events. So, let's say we look at breaking down those activities, dogs at large. Does this require a response from us? I drive around the regional district. I don't believe we're inundated by, packs of dogs running around. Most people seem to find the dog, put it on Facebook, and it seems to be resolved that way. And there's other adoption agencies and stuff that are available to deliver those kind of services. Barking, definitely an issue, as director identified. So, in my opinion, barking could be moved over into a new revised noise control bylaw that I will speak to at some future time. But I feel that if we examine the threshold at which we respond to barking dog complaints, that it would be manageable if we adjust that, if we have some discretion in there, that staff would be able to deal with the number of noise complaints that we're having throughout the RDCK. Because there's some situations we are not going to solve, and it becomes quite expensive dedicating a lot of time and resource to that. And then dangerous and aggressive dogs, we need tools to manage their behavior. Our existing dog control bylaws are outdated and don't reflect current case law, kind of developments. So I hope that answers your question.
The supplemental hope we would have a future item to amend the noise bylaw, depending where this goes.
Sorry, that wasn't fun, but it was, yes.
Yep.
Graham, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. So I'm just looking at the work plan. And I'm noticing that there's a review noise bylaw 2440/2015 from 2022-09-22, which includes staff consider adding barking dogs. So this is already in the work plan. So I'm just making that note and comment.
Thank you. Thanks for referencing back to the quarterly plan. Go ahead, Pop, I'll talk to you.
So just looking at that, and we talked about priorities, et cetera. When can we expect this report?
On the noise bylaw?
No, on the dog control bylaw.
Oh, my apologies.
Through the chair. So it's going to take a bit at a time. We need to have a conversation around what are the levels of service that we're going to respond to. No call too small kind of thing, or are we going to try and realize that we don't need to go to every single dog at large. I feel that so we've extended the existing contract. We're awarding a new contract for I&J and soon to be Area K. And then I&J, K, and E and F will all expire June 30th, I believe, next year. So that's kind of our timeline. Working back from June 30th, we need to make the determination, what's it going to look like, and the bylaw. There's a lot of work to be done, of course, and then ensure that we have the training and the equipment that we require to deliver this service internally.
Thank you.
Okay. So I was curious about, Area D's not in this. The one time we did a feasibility assessment on dog control, and it was specifically around dangerous dogs. There was a repeated year-long event of very dangerous situation. We were able to pull in the SPCA. However, we did do a feasibility assessment on developing a service, and it was very costly because it was specifically for Johnson's Landing. 20 residents or less, quite remote. You're as far as you can, not as far as you can get in the RD, but pretty far. I'm curious, there are a lot of dog issues. I agree that we actually with Canada have a dog page for animals at large, and it gets used frequently. We tend to know more about whose dogs are who's in town than we might know who people are, which is great. But that doesn't mean there aren't issues. My question is, I know Dee's not in this, we don't currently have the service, but I would be interested in being a participant in the conversation to assess if there was a regional approach to the service that might be more cost effective, and could we handle some of the really remote issues that are occurring? Is that possible to include me in this and go from there?
Yeah, through the chair, certainly it's impossible. I would like to see an RDCK wide responsible dog owners bylaw. When it's on your property, the dog is confined to your property. When he's off your property, the dog is under your complete control. And then, provisions around aggressive dogs and dangerous dogs. So the aggressive piece gives us tools to manage the dog that has, attacked some chickens or has been an incident with a person, and then allows us the signing, the muzzling, the confining of the dog, and then enabling us to enforce section 49 of the community charter pursuant to dangerous dogs. That's it. Just simple, straightforward, give us a tool to manage. With our new online dog control, complaint portal, we have the stats. So is there an issue in Johnson's Landing? Well, let's see what the stats say. Perhaps we have to develop a specific targeted, enforcement events for that area. Perhaps it needs an education piece. Geography is certainly a challenge, but I don't think it's insurmountable.
Thank you. I'm gonna give myself a supplemental on Hannah Graff and Vandenberg and do it. So on that note, what was interesting about, it's been solved in Johnson's Landing, but it was a bit of an anomaly that the RCMP and the SPCA got involved. It required two of the people in those entities to take an interest and have the concern to move forward with it. So it's not a sustainable approach. The biggest gaps for them is they do not have funding for apprehension. They don't have funding for the ability to hold an animal. And if it actually went to any kind of destruction of the animal, any court costs, like none of that was held within either of those entities. So they were able to deal with it. It required a lot of work on the RCMP's end. They don't always have the provisions to do that. And so I do think there's still the opportunity to look at what are we doing that's a sustainable approach. It's not a one-off on the relationships we might have with different entities. And also what are the funding mechanisms for that? Because we currently don't have a compound for animals and we used to up the north end of the lake. So thank you. I'd be happy to be in that conversation. It's Johnson's Landing's been solved, but there's 23 other communities that might have issues. To the list, Hanegraaff, Vandenberg, Cunningham, and then Hewitt.
Okay, through the chair, I just want to say I appreciate sort of the RDCK wide approach over. I look at Area J, I don't know why the dogs in Robson and Raspberry need more attention than the dogs in other areas, Area J. You know, maybe Ootashemia dog owners are better than Robson dog owners or some ridiculous notion like that makes absolutely no sense to me. I think a broader, more common sense approach that doesn't include patrols where people drive around looking for dogs that aren't where they belong. That seems like a complete waste of money to me. So I think it's time that we, you know, take a sensible look at what works for most, if not all, people in the RDCK.
Thanks, Hanegraaff. Director Vandenberg.
Great, thank you. Through the chair. So we've had the benefit of having a lengthy conversation at Valley Services. And Jordan, you had said that part of the start point would be determining the levels of service. But I think through our conversation, you kind of know where we're at, what our expectation is. With that said, the option 1A fits better. However, it would include Area D, but I do believe that it should be to all rural areas within RDCK in a cost-effective, common sense manner as best as you can. So I just wanted to verify that to move forward with your dog control, you're good when it comes to A, B, and C. And well, see, we decided that any of the problems we just drop off in Crescent, didn't we? Yeah,
Yes.
so we're all good there?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Partners. Thank you. Cunningham and then Hewitt.
Very good. Area B is not on the list either, but I wouldn't mind if it was part of the district-wide policy. I know the people in the biggest problem, of course, barking dogs can get taken care of under the noise control bylaw. And other than that, let's face it, they've always been, Weimer's a good place for kids and dogs, and there's about equal numbers of each. I was down at 2 to 3:30 to see when it was just about the same time the school bus came in. And there's a line of probably a dozen dogs waiting there for the kids to get off the bus. As soon as the bus stops, the dogs all run for the bus and the kid gets off and the dog follows the kid. So, okay, well, you guys do what you want. Occasionally, the problem I have, of course, is with dogs that are dangerous or that, yeah. And that I think is a separate issue. As far as, you know, in a place like Weimer, there are, I know half a dozen people who leash their dogs when they walk, probably for good reason. And, but that's about it. Out of 80 dogs that I know in town, you know, yeah, that's about it. So, and when I tried this thing before, I have had requests when we've had difficulties for dog control. And I said, okay, well, let's just take a straw poll. I said, you know, how many of you would like dog control? Oh, about 80% said yes. You realize this will cost you possibly $30 a year in taxes? And oh, then it dropped down to about 10%. So in other words, oh yeah, we'd like the service, but we don't want to pay for it, the usual thing. So if it's part of the district policy with areas, for example, if you're out in the country, maybe you don't need quite a bit. It all depends upon population density, you know, kind of thing. I can see some reason for some with dog bylaw, and for good reason. But that those same reasons don't seem to apply in the next area, in you know, is in Weimer, which is and beyond that, where you're out in the we already have things with regards to dogs running beer and things like that, that are taken care of under animal control, things. I'd certainly like to talk it over with you and see what we can do as part of the district policy.
Again, if I could through the chair, you know, we would remain complaint driven. So if we're not getting calls from Weimer, we're not going out. If there's no problem, we're not going kind of thing. But if there is a problem, it'd be nice to have the tool. Because as soon as the guy does get bit, as soon as something happens, I'm getting the phone call, you know, why don't we have these available to us? If we had one throughout the RDCK and we had a service establishment bylaw to fund it with a standing offer for kennels, with a rate for dangerous dogs and a rate for regular dogs, I believe this could be accommodated. IMJ, 26 complaints for all of 2023. K was 120. Bear in mind that includes the village. There's a lot of dogs at large in the village. And E and F was 44 calls. So, you know, the vast majority dogs and dogs at large, with about 4 or 5 calls throughout the whole RDCK that would involve a dangerous or aggressive dog per year. So we could train 1, perhaps 2 bylaw staff, designate them as our go-to expert. They're the person that's going to go and investigate the most serious offense that takes, you know, that happens with a dog and go from there.
Thank you. So there's 3 more people on the speakers list. I'll come back to you if necessary, but just to note, we don't have a motion on the floor, and the motion is to actually engage in this discussion. And so we're not gonna figure it all right now. We're actually gonna have another conversation. Let's not go through all the details here. I'm gonna keep going through the speakers list. So we've got Hewitt, Lunn, and Weatherhead.
Thank you through the chair. My comment is we're referencing a region-wide service, but it's very clearly not region-wide. So there's got to be that clear distinction made that you're not encompassing municipalities in your bylaw. You referenced calls into the village of McCusk, and I know that dogs don't recognize boundaries. We may have Caslow dogs who go across the street and are in the area D and vice versa. But yeah, so we've got to be careful in that distinction, because are you going to start answering calls? The public is not going to know. If you're saying region-wide, that means everybody, not just your rural areas. And that's going to be really difficult for people to grasp.
Yeah, through the chair, my language, and I apologize for that. I certainly understand that we don't deliver the service to some villages, but it could be that we become, you know, we are in a position to deliver at least the section 49 component, so that again, if something happens in a village, you're getting a competent investigator who knows what they're doing.
I think, again, no motion on the floor. So just reminding, because we're now asking, people are wanting to speak a second time. So if this motion goes through, I think it also would be good to include municipalities in the invitation to the discussion, so that if they want to entertain that, or, you know, if Cusk wants to contract or whatnot, that they're a part of what that would look like, and then they can bring it back to their councils if they want to. I think the note here is it doesn't have to not include municipalities, nor do you have to be a part of it. So I think that's okay to do, Jordan. So we have Lunn, Weatherhead, both Top-Off and Cunningham need to speak a second time. Someone please move a motion. Sounds like we want to do this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, motion's on the floor. Sorry, what did you want to say?
Sorry, through the chair, which motion? The motion on the agenda doesn't include D and G. The second option in the report does not include any municipalities. So is there an option to, are we looking to include municipal options as well?
1A for the discussion.
Okay, wait, we're not all speaking at once. Cunningham is the mover of the motion. Which motion are you moving?
1A with the inclusion of area G.
And D.
And D. There we go.
So I'm gonna go to motion 1A and read it. Director Lunn, I know you're next on the list. I'm sorry, 1 second. I will go to you next. But I'm gonna pull up the motion. Oh my God, where did it go? Ange, do you have it?
The
Point of
motion I
order,
have,
Madam Chair.
One moment.
so through the chair, the motion I have for 1A is that the board directs staff to prepare a report determining the capacity of the bylaw enforcement team to deliver dog control services in a fiscally efficient manner and confirm the level of service to be provided. And further, that the board directs staff to draft a proposed responsible dog owners bylaw in consultation with legal counsel for board review, and to draft an establishment bylaw to deliver dog control service to all rural areas in the RDCK.
So I'm just gonna first go back to Cunningham to verify, is that the motion you're wanting to move?
That is the motion, yes. You notice he uses the word rural.
Yes, 1 second. Now I want to go back to the municipalities. Do you want to be included in the discussion? Can I just ask you to reach out to municipalities and ask them if they want to be included in a discussion?
Certainly.
Okay. Your point of order,
Was just that.
thank you.
It's already, we're complicating it more than we need to.
So through the chair, I just would like that as a direction to staff within the motion. And further, that staff be directed to
Reach out to the
contact
municipalities.
municipalities to determine their interest in the service.
As the mover of that motion, you accept that as a friendly amendment? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, motion's on the floor. It's 1A in the report, and it's got an amendment to include that staff reach out to municipalities to inquire on their interest. I'm gonna go back to the original speakers list. No, we have 3 other speakers. I don't want to decline them. Director Lund, go ahead.
I think it's been responded to. The village of Sulcan has something on the work plan to include us. We're still looking for a solution for dog control. So the amendment to the resolution covers that. Will be it. We would like to be included.
Okay, thank you, Director Lund. Weatherhead.
Thank you. I'm in favor of that, so I can second that motion. If it hasn't been.
It's already on the floor. It's already got the amendment.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to thank Jordan for all the hard work he's put into this, because it has been rather a frustrating situation. And I just want to express also within this, there will be looked at the amount of the number of dogs that people have, because in many of our settlement areas, we can have problems when there's multiple dogs creating issues. So I'm really pleased that that's going to be part of that.
Thank you. I have Popoff and Cunningham for a second time. Do you need to speak?
No.
Thank you, Popoff.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that are currently seeking to have dog control. We've added area D and we've added area G.
All rural areas with staff direction to consult with municipalities is the motion.
So the question is, if one area does not want dog control, can they opt out?
I believe we'll reference that in the bylaw when it gets written, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, which item was that? 9.1.5, this is the Kootenay Clean Energy Transition. Dr. Vandenberg, I'm gonna go to you first because you wanted to make another comment, but we were out of time on the delegation. Do you want to make your comment or observation now?
Nope, thank you.
Okay. Was there any other questions on the report? This is the final report that Sherry provided. Sherry, you were on the line. Is there anything you wanted to share with us?
I am on the line, thank you. I missed the delegation this morning and I apologize. I just want to let you know that we are working with HPCN, or the Homeowner Performance Contractor Network, to increase membership. We are still working with the Kootenay Clean Energy Transition to provide contractor capacity to support the Energy Step Code transition and our regional energy efficiency program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Vandenberg.
I would, if I may.
Yes.
Yes, so my question would be around this. If we as in an area choose to opt out on this, can we?
Go ahead, Sherry.
There is, if we're talking about the Crescent Valley, there are training events, for instance, that are offered throughout all the areas, and they would be concentrated, say, in Creston or Nelson area. I'm not sure, there is no request right now for future funding. So I'm I guess we could think about that if funding is requested.
Thank you.
So just to make sure we're on the same page here, so this is a final report. This is the ending of a funding program on this, and this is not currently a service that's held within us. Sherry Amata, as our senior energy specialist, has been the main staff person working on it. I think through REAP, Regional Energy Efficiency Program, which is about a 2-year grant process that we're still awaiting on, there would be some work within that we could see similar. So I'm just making sure I'm following that.
No, I'm sure he wants to speak to it, but yeah.
Okay. Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just trying to get clarification on this through the chair. So the funding has already been paid out of which service?
Through the chair, I'd have to go back and double check what service it was. It was a number of years ago. The second payment was made in 2022, so the first one in 2021. I think it was general admin, but I'd have to go back and double check.
I'm pretty sure Accelerate Kootenay went through general admin.
Accelerate Kootenay did for sure.
Yeah. Supplemental? Nope, okay. No other questions at this time? You can always reach out to Sherry with other questions as well. Environmental Services Contract Award 9.2.1 Lister Water Main Upgrade. Tierney, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to move a motion that the board award the Lister Water Main Upgrades project to Right Way Holdings, and that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents to a maximum value of $301,845.10 plus GST, and further that the funds be paid from service S243 Water Utility Area B, Lister.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 2024 Ready Grants. Everybody have fun at their meetings?
Yeah.
Would we like to move a motion or ask a
I'll
question?
move the recommendation on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Seconded. Discussion? Lockwood, go ahead.
I have a question that was brought from a resident, and I want to just make sure that I correctly answered it. And it wasn't from one of my residents. That when this money is allocated, that the project that they have, I don't know if somebody's online to be able to do this, but.
Mike's here.
Oh, hi, Mike.
I believe Lisa's online.
Okay, when the project is allocated, we approve it today. If any of the project was purchased before today, is it still qualified for the project?
I don't see Lisa online, but like, yeah. Go ahead.
Through the chair, my understanding is, no, it's as of the date of award, but, I would have to check on that, but I believe that's it. You cannot expend money without the grant is important.
I would direct them to Lisa.
I did.
Okay. Further discussion? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. 2024 UBCM resolutions. And so this is, we have a placeholder there. We did not receive any in advance of the agenda. You can send them in advance for June. If there were topics, but you need support in crafting a resolution, please reach out to myself and Stuart. We won't craft them from the table here, but go ahead, Vandenberg.
So this is encouraging directors as individuals to put forward potential resolutions. I think the opportunity lost is that discussion around the table to explore and expand the intent of these sort of things. I just want to point that out that the current process could be a little bit more effective if we had that opportunity to explore with one another the thoughts and ideas, as opposed to charging an individual director with coming forward and then working with you and Stuart on it. So that's just my comments and my observations.
You put Cunningham on the list. So there's a couple different ways of doing this. Just to verify, the motion needs to be approved by the board. And when the motion comes to the board on the agenda, we debate it, discuss it, and the board has to approve it moving forward. A director can't just put a motion forward direct to UBCM. So there is debate at that point. I get what you're saying is the strategic approach to it is the like can we sit together and talk about what we might want to do? And that's where I encourage directors to reach out to each other and talk about those things. Supplemental.
Right, supplemental, though, this is not the forum. We don't have the time to debate here, as been an example of a couple of things earlier today because of our time constraint. And the ability, our democracy is based on the ability to debate things. But we have a disadvantage with the workload that we have here. So once again, and then conversing with, yeah, I don't know, it's just awkward. I think it's just inefficient.
Well, and sorry, I need to clarify again, because generally the way it works is that us as colleagues reach out to each other. I'll work with Director Jackman on something. I'll be like, Boone, I heard you say this. I'd like to talk to you about that. The crafting and the discussion piece, that's not business you do at a board table. That's discussion you can do either in your Crescent Valley Services or reaching out to each other. The motions themselves are always debated. That is always a discussion at this table once it's on the agenda. And so we don't talk so much here in general terms, but that's what networking and reaching out to each other is about. I do agree the work plan does not give us a lot of space to discuss at this table. And honestly, I do our best to get us out of here by 4:30, and even then it's tight. So it is a consideration, but don't hesitate to not reach out to your colleagues and talk about these things and figure out what you might want to do as a group. I had, who was on the list? Cunningham and then Page.
Thank you. I'll refer to Director Page because I think we have the same idea. Go ahead.
Page, go ahead.
I'm sorry, sir.
I'll be quick and I won't defer to the nominate or to the resolutions chair, Ms. Aaron. But this is a pressure release valve timing for time sensitive, mostly issues that didn't get through the association of Kootenay boundary being the primary feeder into this resolution process. And so this last year, we held 2 resolution sessions for the entirety of the membership to work out ideas on resolutions of a broader scope. This certainly is something we could contemplate as a board going into next season's resolutions where we would sit down as a committee level. We could certainly do that at the City of Nelson and have those kind of more free-form discussions. That's perfectly possible. But this step here is really, did something time sensitive show up that you couldn't get through your area association, that you weren't able to debate at your area association, or in some cases, people's resolutions don't make it through the area association and they make another attempt to push them through at UBCM. And there is discussion at UBCM. This door may be narrowed and turn into only time sensitive items because there is certain things that jump the queue. But the primary focus is this to go through association of Kootenay boundary local government and be debated there before it moves on to UBCM.
Thank you. It's a good reminder that that is actually the first process, and the generally preferred process is through our associations.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that AKBLG put on those sessions. I forgot you guys had done that this year, and that's a great place to go because you're actually getting a regional conversation that's EK, Kootenay boundary, Columbia Shuswap, so it's a much broader conversation. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak to this? Okay. How are we at? 11:35, 10 minutes. MOU Castlegar Area I and J Economic Development Partnership.
I move that the board authorize the chief administrative officer to sign a memorandum of understanding with the city of Castlegar for the purpose of fostering economic development in the Castlegar and district region.
Second.
Thank you, Director Vogel. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Chair, I have a question on procedure. So this is participants only weighted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so my question, I guess, is to the CAO. This is a memorandum of understanding, but it has financial implications. So the key thing is that if it's participants only weighted, and say, for example, area I and J were supportive and the city of Castlegar said no, area I and J have 4 votes, weighted votes, and the city of Castlegar has 4 votes, then it would fail. Is that correct? That's my first question.
So through the chair, there's an error on the agenda. It's actually all vote weighted because it's an agreement with financial implications. But just to answer your question, if it was participants only weighted, the city of Castlegar is not voting on it. It's just area I and area J.
Okay, so that's why I'm wondering if we're doing this correctly.
It's all weighted.
Okay, so you got your question answered, Director Davidoff?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you to please use chat? Because Zoom is very difficult, even
Oh.
more than WebEx, to see when someone wants to be on the speakers list. Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.3.4 Transit Annual Operating Agreement. Do this every year. Did we have questions? Are we ready for a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Newell. Do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion? Looking online. Oh, Vandenberg, yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
disappointed that Mr. Jewell is not here to speak to us about, so passionate about transit.
He's online.
He's online. He's
Oh,
online.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's always good to hear from him when his passion for transit.
Tom, do you got passion for transit today? Oh, we caught him. He's not there. Oh, sure do. Thanks, Tom. It's in the chat.
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm gonna take a motion to postpone the audited financial statements till post in camera. Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I failed to mention at the beginning, right after lunch, we will be going in camera regardless on where we are in the open agenda. But, so 9.3.6, for information, the quarterly report. Does anyone have questions? Again, when it's specific to your item, you can reach out directly to staff. Let's jump right into then, oh, sorry, Graham, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, so through the chair, I had one question on this work plan and it came as a result yesterday of one of our discussions at RAC. And that was regarding the subdivision servicing bylaw from 2020-05-21. And just with our discussions regarding septic systems type 2 and 3, if that could be included in that review. As that item had come forward, we had some pretty good talk about that, and I don't know if it's part of that in work plan or not.
Through the chair, that would form part of it. Yeah, we would add that to the scope of that review.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to do anything? No, okay.
Thank you, good catch. Really appreciate people reading the quarterly. Thank you.
One up there.
Yeah.
So through the chair, as a new director, what I'm struggling with this quarterly report is this 99% stuff. So I'm just can somebody explain how a project sits at 99%? Just for an example, would be the Kootenay Lake EDPA, like why is there a 1% still sitting there when this already came to the board and we already made a motion on months ago on how we were gonna move forward, and I just don't understand why it's still there.
So Mike is here specifically on that one. It was motioned to refer to planning, so it's not a complete process.
So through the chair, I wouldn't refer to the direct project when you're talking about the 9%. I would say that's something that, as part of the feedback we received in the quarterly report survey, is something that we're probably looking to change because the buckets don't really tell the story in terms of where it is, because the 80 to 99%, like when I see 99%, I see it as something that will be on the board agenda for June, that's ready to be debated and either a decision made on by the board. If something's 80%, there's still a fifth of the work to be done still. So there's a big gap there, and I think that's something we've got to tighten up on the new survey template. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. May I have one more?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So just for an example here, there's one that says fireworks bylaw area feasibility report from 2020. And like, it's my understanding that this fireworks is covered under fire regulations. I'm wondering why it's there. Obviously it's before my time. Like, how do we get these things off of this work report? I guess is the.
Through the chair, director's motion would be beautiful to get that off the work plan.
Okay.
It's a really good note. Yeah, that's a good note to make, that if you do see them, especially as a new director, the previous director made that motion, it is important to bring that forward directly to staff and say, I don't think this is important for this area anymore, and then we can make the appropriate process. So good question. I do see Vandenberg, Mike, I saw you wanting to talk at 1 or 2 points, and then I went straight to Stuart. Is there anything you want to say right now?
So, to the point about old items that are currently on the work plan, one of the things that we'll be doing through the process of making improvements to the quarterly reporting process is to identify some of those things that have been sitting on the work plan for a long time and are incompleted. We'll tie into the conversation about prioritization as well, but there will be a mechanism by which when all of this comes forward, there'll be a list of things that the board will have to make some decisions about whether they are still relevant, because some of them have been on the list for a very long time.
Thank you. And in case this is what you're gonna ask, I know that your request for fireworks, review is not going to affect if E decides to change it. Okay, go ahead.
Right, so thank you, and I appreciate that comment that COA, COO, CC. Having the ability to comment on it, because I was unsure of the procedure of the process myself, and that's good to know, but then I'm hearing that the board would still final approve that, so I would make recommendations to get this off, come to the board's good with it. Now, specifically to my questions, and it's on page 4 of the report, to do with the building officials, there's 3 of them in a row. That is a training program, that is the bylaw of 2200, and the building services policy review. All of them are suggesting a shortage of people to have enough people incorporated on staff. I think we're there. I'm not aware that we're short any building inspectors or supervisors, or as they call it here. I think that we're okay with our staff levels, so why is this work not being completed?
To the chair, I can follow up with the building department to see where that sits on the priority. And definitely, it's not something that would be, taken on by new individuals who have come on. So I got to see how Chris is dispersing the work, but I can definitely follow up on that. Yeah.
Yes, because these are back from 2018, we're at 68%, but we're staffed. We should be good.
And that's a recent completion.
Fairly recent.
Yeah. So we had Jackman.
Yeah, I gotta be careful where I put my comments. So very narrowly, if a director indicated something should come off, let's say a director's motion, I would hope staff would go through the rest of the related items and recommend consolidating that, because some of us are tracking items, like I was tracking the emergency service or emergency response, road rescue type stuff from area D, and relying on that in part for where A is gonna be able to go without trying to duplicate the process. So if there's a request to strike something, I'd like to make sure that when that comes to board staff, will say this is related to these 3 other items. And here's how we would suggest consolidating that work instead of just striking part of it.
Okay.
Dog control is a perfect example.
Yes.
There's 6 resolutions in there, probably.
So it's 11:44. We do have public time now. Both of these items are things you can follow up with staff on if you want to ask specifically on the quarterly report, or you want to ask more about the survey that was done and Mike's report on that. So you can reach out directly to staff on those. Mike, any last words before we move on to public time?
No, not much.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, will we return to the survey? I had one brief comment I wanted.
Oh, go ahead then. No, do it
On the
now.
survey, the next one. If you look at question 1, you'll see 14 out of 20 of us responded. Looks like area A didn't. I absolutely did. If someone says this is good, better, or best, and I think it's something else, and I went through enough of the survey questions, I stopped. You can be sure I put lots of thoughts to Mr. Morrison. I thought Mike interacted well with me, but I hope of the other 6, other people also, maybe they didn't use the survey, but some of us use different mechanisms to express our humble opinions.
Yes. So yes, because I saw yours. Good. Okay. So the first thing we're going to address in public time, speaking of building inspection, John, please come up to the table. Yeah, you. As well as our building department.
Building support.
Building support. Sorry, I'm trying to be, where do you want me, Angela?
A little bit more.
There you are. Okay. Hi. Where'd John go? John's sorry, didn't mean to yell. I've known you for so long.
Through the chair of the chair.
I'm gonna read this because I'm not gonna ad lib. John was instrumental in advocating for the adoption of step 1 of the energy step code in the regional district of Central Kootenay. His foresight helped prepare local builders to construct more energy efficient homes and adapt to the evolving provincial standards, significantly impacting our region's environmental and economic landscape. Under your oversight, landmark projects such as the Kolesnikov CLT manufacturing facility, the Spearhead CLT facility, and the strategic reuse and stratification of the Pacific Insight building was realized. These initiatives not only bolster local economic development, but also position the RDCK as a leader in sustainable building practices. A true mentor and coach, John played a crucial role following the implementation of Building Act in 2015. You guided our team of building officials through the modernization of BC's building regulatory system, emphasizing the importance of competency, qualification, and certification. Your commitment to the principle of apply the code as written has enhanced our department's clarity and effectiveness, ensuring that builders across the area meet the standards of compliance and safety. Outside of your professional life, you're an avid hiker, explore the trails of the Kootenay, other parts of BC, and along the Continental Divide, embracing the natural beauty that inspires your work and leadership. As we step into retirement, we are grateful for your service, your leadership, and your unwavering dedication to our community. We wish you many happy trails in the years to come. Thank you for being with us. And because we have a bunch of your staff here, hello, you guys want to say hello or give me room for John?
Can't leave.
Let's go to the pub. Don't sign off in the paper, and he can't leave. He's been gone for 6.
It wasn't on.
Yeah.
It wasn't on. You know, from down here to one of the cold, dark corners of my heart. Yeah. I'm trying to light up. It wasn't on. So retirement is great. I suggest.
I'm sorry, I failed to say how many years John was with us. She's been here so long, we don't know when it started.
It's not here.
Could be out. Expected.
Okay. So we now have public time for questions. Sorry for folks online, if you cannot put stuff in chat, just raise your hand if you want to ask a question and I'll call on you at that time. So I'm going to start with those online and then those that can come in the room and have a question. So Mike Casper, you had a question, go ahead and ask. Okay, I'll just read your question. He doesn't have audio. Oh, it's *6 possibly. So your question is regarding procedure bylaw 2576 amendments from today's agenda. It appears that some of this bylaw involves the public in meetings. Will the proposed bylaw amendments be shared with the public to give us an opportunity to provide feedback to directors? Staff?
Through the chair, yes, it's required by legislation.
Yes. So it will be shared. Other members of the public online, you should be able to either *6 to unmute or just unmute through the Zoom function. If you have a question. Media as well. Generally include you. Okay, not seeing any. Farrell, come on up.
Standing here?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Farrell.
Chair, thank you very much. I noticed there's a first reading of a bylaw. This bylaw to meet the requirements of Provincial Bill 44, which is a housing requirement. I just want to make a comment that on 481(4)(C), page 5 of the Bill 44 excludes properties which don't have water or sewer. From a municipal, which I think accounts for most of the properties outside of the town. And secondly, it doesn't apply to villages or towns less than 5,000 population. So I don't know why we're actually doing this, but that's not why I'm here, because I thought somebody would have looked into that before going to all the effort we're going to. We literally can say, no, thank you. But I have a question. Salmo Pool has a certificate on the wall of the building which says complete by the architect, a completion certificate of November 30th, 2023. Yesterday, the pool is empty. There's compressors, there's construction equipment, there's electric cabling that is being done at the moment, but yet this project was completed. I was up here at the meeting a few months ago, and I asked it, and I said, it definitely will be finished. There are programs being advertised by Recreation. for June the 3rd. We have 9 more days left of work.
Do you want to
Question is-
answer that one?
Always found out now, information readily available.
Joe, did you hear the question?
No, through the chair, did not. I'm not sure if we were talking about the Salmo pool. Is that what
It's
the
the
question
Salmo
was?
pool, yes.
Yeah, Salmo pool. We were guaranteed that this pool would be open. Recreation already have plans for June the 3rd, starting up with swimming programs. The pool is empty. There's construction equipment lying around, and we have 9 more working days left. So, you know, I don't know what's happening.
As far as I'm aware, we're still on schedule.
Thank you.
I hope there's some penalties for contractors who are late.
Thank you, Corinne.
Hi, I'm Corinne Maury, Area E. I wanted to use this opportunity to formally introduce myself as an independent candidate for the upcoming BC election. Watching you around the table is what solidified my position that independent representation actually works. Because you guys have all been making decisions on our behalf without interference of political parties. And I have seen great power come out of that. So I want to thank you for showing me that example. I am very aware of the challenges that you're experiencing, obviously. I've been trying to watch and assist as I can. So I just want you to know that my position is that I will do whatever I can to protect essential services for our community. I do have a website. I am going to be having 2 interviews this week, one with the retired Attorney General, Suzanne Anton, and another constitutional First Nations lawyer. We will be discussing sort of the legalities and issues that are going on with our political government and the law. I do have a website, and those will be posted on that website in the next week. So if you are interested in discussions with higher levels on what is going on with our province government, et cetera, you know where to find me. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Other questions from the public? Hello, welcome.
My name is Jennifer Van Horn. I'm a resident of Taylor Drive, part of the Save Shannon Creek movement, and I'm here on behalf of a group of more than.
Sorry, where are you going? Can I help you?
Can I join the meeting?
Yeah, you can sit in the back.
Oh, in the
That's
back.
where the gallery goes, yes. Sorry to interrupt you.
Here, I'm on behalf of a group of more than 50 households that depend on water from Shannon and Crystal Creek. We're concerned about a significant and imminent threat to our watershed. There's a property for sale consisting of 13 acres above Annabelle up to power lines and then 44 acres along the power lines above Taylor Drive. This property is owned by Anderson Creek Timber. Many of us draw our water from Shannon Creek and are very concerned about the impact that this sale will have on our water source. The land is being advertised as prime logging and development, which means that at some point there will be water taken from our creek to supply those new fields if there are any that come about. This area is also used by a large community of people for hiking and cycling every day for many decades. We would like to see the pulpit trail system potentially tie into the trails that currently exist along the Shannon Creek. We have been in touch with the Nature Conservancy of Canada, who are interested in purchasing the land as they already own adjacent property to Taylor Drive that they acquired from Darkwoods a few years ago. There are 3 other parties interested in purchasing this land, and the realtor will begin accepting bids officially on May 31st. Anderson Creek Timber has indicated to us that they are interested in selling to the Land Conservancy. However, they, so that the land can be preserved. The challenge is the timeline, because Anderson Creek Timber needs the sale complete by July 1st. And the Land Conservancy can't move that quickly. So our community needs help to help bridge the time gap here. If the Land Conservancy can commit to buying land, we need an intermediary purchaser immediately to hold the land until they can complete the sale. We were talking with the Columbia Basin Trust to see if there are any grants that they can help us with. But we also urgently need the support of the RDCK. I hope that there's something the RDCK can do to help us through this short timeline to save our watershed and create more recreation in the Nelson area. The answer is simple and the parties are willing, but it's just a timeline that's creating quite a challenge for us right now. I'd be grateful for any support or advice you can offer our community. And we also have a website, saveshannoncreek.ca, where you can get more advice or more information.
Thank you so much. Which area is that? Okay. So while it wasn't a specific question, we can let you know that for a letter of support, it would be a part of our June board meeting, which might not meet your timeline, but you can reach out to Director Newell, who is the director for that area. He can write a letter of support from his perspective quicker than that if he chose to. So just in terms of procedures, and you can reach out to him about any other aspects of that. We have about 2 minutes left. Deb, come on up.
I just wanted to clarify, I sent everyone an email last night regarding the Bill 44 bylaw amendments that were tabled at the RAC meeting yesterday and that are on item 10 of this agenda. And my email was to let everybody know, because I don't think they do, that there is a extension process for the adoption of bylaws, you know, to comply with Bill 44. I don't believe that the extension process was in any of the APHC meetings. Like I looked at all of the minutes and it was never mentioned. It wasn't included in the memo to the RAC committee, and it wasn't included for your consideration today. So there are other regional districts that have done the extension application. And, you know, for me, I don't know why you wouldn't use the opportunity for another 6 months to really assess. I mean, there wasn't one meeting, I don't think, APHC or RAC yesterday, where there wasn't a whole bunch of questions. You know, that I think there were several APHC committees that didn't even come to a conclusion, didn't support. So anyway, I just wanted you to know that was what my email was about, was the opportunity to apply for an extension. And it's not too late. You know, you could apply, and just as long as if you don't, if it fails, if the application fails, that you still have the opportunity. I mean, you're still waiting for MODI approval anyway. So you still have the option to consider it at the June meeting. So I don't really see the downside to applying, but I just wanted to clarify that's what my email is about.
Thank you, Deb. I didn't respond to you by email, but I did inquire, and I had inquired previously because I was aware of that. The infrastructure, the delay due to infrastructure is directly related to infrastructure that is owned by the local government where capacity has been predetermined that then determines zoning. 90% of the areas where this would apply, it's not regional district owned infrastructure that has been tied to capacity, which relates to density. And so that is something that we can talk more in depth about when we get to that item regarding rural affairs, but that's the gap. The Sunshine Coast one all relates to RD owned infrastructure. And that's why their request for extension would qualify. We don't own most of the infrastructure where these are applied. So that's the difference, but yeah, I'm sure it'll come up at that item again.
Great, okay.
Thank you, Deb. So it's noon. That's all the time we have for public time. Directors will break for lunch, and at 1 o'clock we will be going in camera. Thank you. Oh, yeah, she can do it. Can you make it? Turn on video. Thanks, everybody. So we're going to reconvene and we're going to ask all the members of the public and the media, if you can please leave the meeting. We are going in camera. So the number ending in 94, if you could please disconnect. And then you have a lot of staff on here. Who stays?
really. Well, David and Grant can go. It's later on in the agenda.
David and Grant, thank you so much for being with us. If you guys can log off. You want Trish and Joe here?
There's a lot of Rex on that.
Okay. Hi, Jessica. Dr. Lund, Dr. David, are you with us? Yeah, and you'll have to expel the 7994.
Yes, we're still in open, we need to move.
Sure, I'm on, sorry.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move to in camera.
Okay.
So I'll take a motion to recess the open meeting. Thank you.
Or is that exclude the public from the meeting first?
Whatever the first motion is, thank you.
So moved.
Close the meeting to the public. So moved, seconded, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Through the chair, the 7994 is considered minute.
Oh, okay, thank you. And
So I'm just going to.
stop eating. Oh, thank you. Right, open them up. Okay. Sorry. So we are on item 9.3.5. This is the audited financial statement. I saw you there, Mario. Do you want to go ahead and put on your screen? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
And sorry, do we need a motion? We postponed it, so are we just at that item? We didn't table it.
Because it's identified in the agenda that it was going after in camera, it's just an order change.
Okay, so we're good to go. Okay, go ahead, Mario. You can, are you gonna share your screen?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me back. So we're here to present the audited financial statements for the Regional District of Central Kootenay for the year ended December 31st, 2023. Now, before I jump in and start to present the statements, I also want to remind the board that we do have a new significant accounting standard this year. So the new standard is titled Asset Retirement Obligations, and for the first time, governments across Canada are required to record any legal liabilities to decommission their assets at the end of life. You had something similar. There was a similar standard for landfills previously, where we had a landfill liability recognizing closure costs. However, now this new standard is going to change that calculation, and it's also going to be for more than just your AROs. And actually, I see that. Can everybody see the financial statements on screen?
Yep.
Yeah, but you can go full screen if you want.
Okay, I'm just going to unshare and start because it doesn't look, something was not quite right on mine. Okay, is that better?
It's the same. But it's.
Really? Okay. Technology was working better this earlier today, so okay, hopefully that gives a bit.
Yeah, we can see it fine. It's good. And
Okay.
directors, if you do want to log on to see it on your computer better, you can do that. It was also, this was in the addenda as well, so you can pull it up through eScribe, I believe. Go ahead.
So what we have here is a slide that highlights what the impact of the adoption is, which I want to discuss before we get into the financial statements. And what I have here is the first column is future costs, and it breaks down what the asset retirement obligation would be at some point in the future between the three major categories being the buildings, which is mainly asbestos, landfill, and water wells to be closed. This future cost is what we have estimated the number to be 30, 40, 50 years from now, which includes inflation. It's not what the number would be today. And so we can see that the number is sitting at $56 million. Now, this is a number that has always been there. It just hasn't been tracked in this way. So the number was there in the past, and it still is there today. And for the landfill, as an example, this is a number that management has known and has, set rates to include so that we have closure planning able to, and money set aside for this. So it doesn't really change anything that you've been doing. It's just putting it on the face of the financial statements so that we can see and we can track it going forward. In terms of what the liability is going to be now, we can see that there's a $28 million liability, with the bulk of it being within your landfills. Previously, the landfill liability was at 3.7 million, but with the math changing to being now this is based on the number of years till we close, the calculation has changed. But again, the underlying assumptions have not changed, and these are numbers that management has known and has been working with as part of their asset management planning. So when we see this liability and the impact that we're going to talk about on the next pages, I just wanted to be clear that this isn't something that we have to put this money aside in the reserves in a set amount of time. This isn't something that's imminent. It's something that now management can point to as part of the asset management programs that are already in place. And so, say for an example, if you want to do a major renovation, you know what the asbestos in the building is going to be, and you factor that into the renovation costs. And that is the intention of this standard. So I'm going to pause there and just ask, are there any questions before we get into the financial statements? Because I want to get this dealt with before we get into the remainder of it.
Questions, directors? Looks good. You can move along. Okay,
so we'll jump into the statements now. And so as of today, our audit is substantially complete. And if it is the board's pleasure to approve these financial statements, we are issuing a clean audit opinion. So these statements do present fairly the results of the regional district for the year ended December 31st, 2023. I also wanted to quickly highlight that there are 2 unaudited pages. And when I say unaudited, at the end, these are items that it's not that we encountered any issues in terms of being able to deal with auditing it. It's that the province has asked for the COVID Safe Restart Grant schedule and the Growing Communities Fund schedule in addition to what's required in the financial statements. So it's not required information, and the province knows that for us to audit, and any auditing firm across the province to audit whether or not this pen that was purchased for the Growing Communities Fund is part of an eligible expenditure. There's a cost to that. They just want to make sure that they see it on the statements. They know that we're conducting our audit on the statements as a whole. So that's just something that the province is requiring us to do. It's not something that we have to worry about, the fact that it's not audited. It's just additional information over and above the statements. So moving into the results, we're going to start on the statement of financial position, which is a snapshot of all of your assets and liabilities at the end of the year. And we've seen a trend across the province this year with local governments in that your financial asset positions, so the cash you have, investments, and cash coming in, has increased from $75 million to $81.8 million. And we'll talk about why that increase happened on the next page. When we look at your total liability position, your liability position after adjusting for asset retirement obligations was $98.6 million last year, down to $97 million this year. And we come to a new term on your financial statements, which is net debt. And what the net debt position is if we take all of our cash and financial assets and deduct our liabilities as if we settled it tomorrow, it's what would be left in the bank to deliver services. And you've gone negative. The reason why you've gone negative, though, is because of the asset retirement obligations. And like I talked about, this is something that you might not be closing a landfill for 50 years. And so while the statements are showing it, it's kind of non-intuitive, the fact that now we're showing a negative financial position, even though this is because of something that can occur 50 years from now. So you don't have this on your copies of the statements, but I've added this blue text here manually just to show that if we go back, restate our net debt position to exclude asset retirement obligations, we would be back to a net financial asset position, which is where you've been in the past. of $13.8 million, up from $4.1 million last year. So I wanted to highlight that because it's something that's changed on the statements, and net debt can have a connotation. It's not that you're in a deficit position, it's that we're including asset retirement obligations in this calculation. So that's why we have this amount here. So moving forward to the statement of operations, all of your revenues and expenses in the year, we could see that total revenues came in at 73.8 million, up from your budget of 65.4 million. A couple of reasons why that happened. The first, we could see that our government grants is over budget, 10.4 million actual versus an $8.7 million budget. And that's because the Growing Communities Fund, $4 million that the province gave out, was not anticipated and was not included in almost any municipal budgets, I think, or local governments. I think out of the 24 statements I've seen this year, I saw one that they did their budget late and had it in there. No one else had it. Gas tax and Columbia Basin Trust funding doesn't happen in your budget because that money comes in, goes to your reserves, and so it is budgeted when it's being spent. But the other item is that we could see that your interest income had a significant jump this year and is at $2.7 million. And so when we look at that, because there was this additional money like Growing Communities Fund coming in a favorable interest rate environment, management took advantage of that and made sure that they put the money to work. And that, $2.7 million is not insignificant in terms of being able to contribute to funds available to deliver your services. Moving down to the expenses, total expenses came in at 62.7 million, over budget by 57.7 million, budget of 57.7 million. But important to remember two things. One is that amortization, which is not a cash item, is not budgeted for, and that's $7 million that's included in your actuals. And also I've highlighted the grants line item where that is funded expenses. And those funded expenses are, when grant money comes in, it's able to be spent. So there's no deficit created by that budget overage. It's just an in and out revenue and expense. So overall, you were able to, you would have been actually under budget if we backed out the amortization. Now I'm going to switch over to this page here because I want to take a moment and speak about the next line item, which is your annual surplus. Your annual surplus came in at $11 million, which was over budget for accounting purposes with an annual surplus of $7.8 million. And it's important to remember that when you budget according to what is required by provincial legislation, it does not align with what the financial statements require you to do. These financial statements are on a completely different basis. And there's nowhere really on the statements where we go from here's what we did in our budget and compare it directly to how we did against our actual results. So I've prepared this slide to walk you through how you did against your actual budget. And so if we start with our annual surplus of $11 million, deduct our capital expenditures, because capital expenditures is an expense in your budget of $9.3 million, add back depreciation of $7 million, which you're not budgeting for, and no one really budgets for depreciation anymore because we know that depreciation, if we funded it from taxation, isn't enough to cover replacement of assets. That's why we do asset management planning now. Then if we deduct our debt repayment, which is an expense in the budget, add back new borrowing, which is revenue in your budget, we come to a surplus before reserve transfers of $7 million versus a budgeted deficit of $18.2 million. We then go and adjust for the reserve transfers to reserve and revenue coming out of reserves, $6.6 million, and we come to a net surplus of $430,000 versus your anticipated break-even budget. So you can see how close you were to actually realizing your budget this year. And when we look at a revenue of your size north of $60 million, that is actually quite remarkable to be that close. And now, just the other highlight is that when we look at this deficit before reserves of 18.2 million that you had budgeted for, what that means is that you had capital projects, which you can see were underspent against budget, that you would have used reserve funds to fund. And so that's why we have that large transfer out of the reserve. So overall, when we bring it back to how you did against operations, you were very close to budget. Now I'm just going to jump into the notes and just highlight 2 items, and we'll open it up for questions. The first is just starting on note 2 and just highlighting that, we talked about the asset retirement obligations and the $27 million roughly that is the current obligation for landfill post-closure. There is money being set aside in the reserves, and it's up to 4.2 million. That's based on the old calculations and how the usage of the landfill is going, based on how management has been tracking it. And again, that is what management has been feeling it needs to be set aside on an annual basis in order to have enough money in the future when the landfill is actually closed. And so that you can see the disconnect between those 2 numbers, which I think is important to highlight. And then I'm going to just jump all the way down to your accumulated surplus note. And so the accumulated surplus, you have broken $100 million in your accumulated surplus, coming in at $108 million. But like we talked about earlier, that is not clearly what you have in the bank. And so when we look at this $108 million, we need to understand it's made up of 3 components. And I'm going to start by talking about the equity and tangible capital assets, because that is over half of what your accumulated surplus is. And that is $57 million. What that number represents is if we take everything that we've spent historically on infrastructure and equipment, deduct what we owe on it in terms of debt, deduct the depreciation that we've taken on it, that's what we have there. So it's the equity in your infrastructure. Think about it like the equity in your home. The only problem with that analogy is that as a local government, you can't borrow against the equity in your infrastructure or the equity in your home. So that's where we look at this number, and it's really more of an accounting tracking number as opposed to a number that is relevant. What's more relevant for you when you're looking at your budget and your results is you have unrestricted of $7.1 million. That number represents what management has as unrestricted funds to execute on the approved budget. We also then have $44 million set aside in restricted surpluses. And at the end of the statements, we can see the various buckets that $43 million is set aside in. And regional districts tend to have large numbers here because there's a lot of funding that is set aside for different service areas, different electoral areas, and the like. So we would expect that number to be a little bit larger. And so that's what I had in terms of presenting the numbers in the financial statements. I wanted to open it up if there's any questions that the board has on them.
Vandenberg, go ahead.
You're in the reserves right now. So an example, there it is, on page 34 or 37. And Service 100 COVID restart funds, there's 32,000 and change in there. How is it that, I'm assuming that will be something that's going to, how do you move money around when you're done with something? And where does it go? So like, do you have to spend the 32,000 even though we're done with COVID? So it's just a general question on how these accounts work.
Yeah, through the chair. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mario, if you got a comment on it.
No, you can start it off.
So through the chair, the accounts work, well, we had to separate that money because it was a grant provided for a specific purpose. And there were certain things outlined in the letter from the province that we received in 2020, I think it was. And the funds could only go to those specific items. Now, it was a little bit less restrictive than the Growing Communities Fund. The Growing Communities Fund, you had 8 months to allocate it to the service where it was going to be used, and then it had to stay in that service and be used for that specific purpose. This one, we kept it in general administration, and we were allocating it out as we needed to, primarily for WebEx costs for remote access for meetings, and cleaning around our recreation centers when we reopened the rec centers during the late 2020 season. So there was a lot of costs that were then dispersed out to services to cover those costs. Now, that remaining $32,000, under the terms of what the province said, we could still use that to pay for our remote licensing fees to allow remote access for meetings. And then anything that might come up, which is almost nothing at this point related to other COVID expenses. But we did have to keep that bucket separate, in a separate reserve. It couldn't just sit in the operating fund for the service.
So that money will, if I may.
Yep.
That money will eventually be consumed through good practice related to COVID and licenses and such.
Yeah, through the chair.
In other words, you don't give the money back.
Through the chair, no, we do not give the money.
Jackman.
Yeah, thank you. Looking for suggestions either through the CFO or auditor in language for next year. Like always, people look at stuff and sometimes some language will trigger people. You could look at 12 accumulated surplus and say, oh my goodness, the government's taken 108 million of our dollars and they don't need it because it's surplus. And of course it's not. Now, if you have to use the phrase or title accumulated surplus, then in brackets, reserve accounts plus equity or something. Down below, it does say equity, tangible capital assets, I understand that. The other three lines say unrestricted and restricted, but they don't say reserves. So doesn't it make sense to add a few words for the public so they can actually read these and not get excited that somehow we got money like surplus? Kind of means it's like disposable income, and it is not. Just those little tweaks next year might make people read this and understand it and get a little less excited and result in less questions for us. And it goes all the way through, that the language is not readily understood. Can we make those changes or are we stuck with this terminology?
Mario, go ahead if you'd like.
Yeah, through the chair to the director. There's certain terms in the financial statements, such as accumulated surplus, which are defined terms under public sector accounting standards that we can never get away from. And I appreciate your comments. I think that it's important to understand that even if you have somebody who's run a business or has been around businesses and has read financial statements for their entire careers, reading government statements is completely different. The underlying principles on why things are presented in certain ways and how things are done are different because you operate in a different environment. There definitely can be some clarity added to the statements, but it is limited in terms of how much we can go outside of it and not. If this is something that the board wants, I would suggest accumulating the comments in terms of what you feel needs further explanations, and we can work with management on having a separate document that comes in that kind of helps explain it, both coming to the board and is also available for the public. I know some communities have done that. And that was also the purpose of why I prepared this slide here, was to kind of walk through something different to kind of explain the difference between annual surplus and what you did in your budget, because again, this is something that all communities struggle with. So if there's some sort of a supplemental that can be added, I'd be happy to work with management on it. But your community better. I would love it if there was information that came from you to help us know what are the key areas that you think or that you get questions on that we should be clarifying.
Page of definitions, maybe, with translation. Thanks.
Okay. And sorry, Mario, you did have comment on the COVID restart funds, and I went to Stuart. Did you want to add anything to that?
You know what, Stuart covered most of it. I think the only other item that I'll add is that the province has in recent months recognized that COVID is hopefully behind us and that it's going to become more and more difficult to spend, and the mandate has been to go and find ways to spend it, and they'll be sending out additional information on top of what they've been doing to give suggestions on how you can spend it because they don't want the money back.
Thank you. Other questions at this time? Go ahead, Lockwood.
I don't know if you need a motion, but let's spend it before they tell us that we need to put it towards housing.
Or give it back.
Other questions for the auditors? Or staff? Did you have anything else to present to us, Mario?
No, that's everything that I had for this meeting.
Okay. I will really appreciate it. We'll do our business component now of actually approving these. Thank you so much. It's been great to work with you. I mean, thanks to our staff and thanks to you. It's actually, personally, I've been able to understand the process a lot better this round. So I really appreciate how you walk through everything.
Well, thank you. And it's been great working with your team and being able to interact with the board as well.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I also would like to thank Mario and his team as well. And as well, the finance team, Heather, Matthew, and Daryl, who are online in this meeting. It was, as always, a massive effort to get to this point and get the audit complete on top of the getting the budget done and getting the requisitions to the province. So thank you again for those three and all the finance team to getting us where we are today.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a motion. I'll move the motion. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Vandenberg.
So was the purpose of the motion to be satisfied that the audit was done correctly? Or is this the opportunity that Yev and staff would like to hear some questions to do around the results of the financial statements? We only got these yesterday afternoon. I can only flip through them so many times before being able to study them and generate some good quality questions, which I've been doing poorly of. So what is the intent? Is it to approve the audit, that we're satisfied that the audit has been done? Or when do we get a chance to actually dive into the results of the financial statements? Because as directors, we probably will be targeted to be able to come back and explain some of this, which I'm not looking forward to, because I am not prepared.
So through the chair, the motion is to approve the financial statements. In terms of your questions, you know, the responsibility, it says right in the line that Mario highlighted, that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. So I don't think you necessarily have to worry about being responsible answering questions that come to you about the financials. You can definitely refer them to staff. That being said, if you have specific questions about the financials, staff can also help you through those as well.
I think it's, if I may, I think it's an opportunity for us to work with you and ask those, sometimes it's hard questions. How did this happen? What happened here? Da, 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 da. That's what I always see the value in financial statements. It's that picture. And we went through a heck of a budget grueling. Yeah, so are you suggesting that one day I can come in and visit with Yev and say, walk me through some of this so I get an understanding what's going on? There's a value here and I'm seeing that we're missing it. I've not studied this. I've only got this yesterday.
Yes, through the chair, if it's a matter of understanding how the statements work, then definitely I would say book some time with Yev to walk through how things are set up and structured. If you've got questions about the financials themselves and concerns about any of the numbers there, I think now would be the time to ask those.
Jackman.
We have a question. Very quickly, before we only had 300 people asking us budget questions at one meeting, so what the heck? That's where I'd like a cheat sheet that tells me these words mean this, to depending what lens or what, you know, what you're for rose-colored glasses. Question is, because through Chair, Yev just said the budget's done, the financial statements are done as soon as we vote, who gets to sign them. So does that mean we'll have our printed budget books really soon, or are they coming out quick, or are they?
Through the chair, next week we hope you'll have.
Because this is the only tool I can talk to people about. I absolutely can't use a financial statement document to talk to community about what are we doing and where's money going.
Yeah, and through the chair, we did have a brief internal discussion around the value of that document without last year's numbers. And we didn't think it was worth producing one that was just the budget. The 2023 numbers are important for you to have those conversations.
Further discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Vandenberg. Recorded opposed?
Yes. Please, thank you.
Okay, we are on item 9.4.1. 911 service agreement renewal.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion? Graham?
Just one question on this, to staff, like, is there any other option or is it the only option for the 911?
Through the chair, it's not the only option, but I truly believe they're the model of the province, if you want my honest opinion.
We did have a previous contract that was not so great.
We had a previous provider, which we were not pleased with. We actually had the regional district split, where a portion of the regional district was through Fraser Fort George, a portion was through another provider, and we couldn't wait until that term was up before moving the entire RD to Fraser Fort George.
Cunningham?
Thank you, yes,
And then
exactly. And the price is quite very reasonable, because I recall when we first, I had this put together with the city of Phil, it was in the $200,000 range rather than 279.
Through the chair, 365 the last year we had them on.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. So it has gone down because and the service, quite frankly, has been quite good. We thought that when we moved away from local people who wouldn't know our local streets and stuff, that it would get worse. And we have had some instances like that. But basically, because of technology, right? People thinking they're on the wrong side of the lake and they were, you know. But however, it overall, it's been good, and I've sort of been monitoring it on big effect with the occasional fire meeting. It's good. And I also still have a pager.
Jackman?
Kind of were partly answered, because the old budget book, I get new one in a week. Yeah, it's moving up contracted services like 380,000, 370 and the like. And I can't recall, if we have these kind of numbers to put into our current 2024 and beyond budget book, or are we gonna see a big savings there? Like, what was the year-over-year change?
Through the chair, similar to this, there won't be a big drop. The other contract, which we couldn't get quite in time for this meeting, is the e-com agreement. Right, so the e-com structure is the phone call goes to e-com, they dispatch out to Fraser Fort George, who then calls our fire department. That e-com agreement, we were hoping to get on this so we could paint the full picture, because the way the e-com agreement works is we contract with the regional district of Central Okanagan, who negotiates with e-com on behalf of all RDs. And so that agreement will be coming forward. That agreement has been increasing over the last number of years. I think it's gone from 80 to just over $100,000. I think it's at 115. The agreement that's coming next month. So there's been a little bit of a shift in the cost there, but the agreement that we're signing with Fraser Fort George is similar to the last couple of years. It hasn't gone up or down significantly.
So to clarify, no other big offsets coming or opportunities. Econ is going to be about the same. And if I can, I do appreciate that these guys, they recognize everybody. They've got, Boswell first responders on their call list, which was such a struggle to get fully certified non-fire department type people on the call list, because that's what people want. So in terms of service delivery, I appreciate the fact that these have gone to all these groups, recognized their qualification, and put them right on the call list. So they are, to me, doing what they need to do.
Yeah. Through the chair, the continued challenge with this service is the 911 fee.
Yeah.
The reduction in the revenue from TELUS has been the biggest challenge in the service for sure.
Maine, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is going to be, where does that 911 fee lie in all of this discussion? Because the amount that TELUS is contributing is decreasing.
Yeah.
Therefore, ours has to increase, which I've brought up at FCM as well.
Yeah, through the chair, I've had a discussion with staff member at FCM. It shows up in the external contributions line item. I think we've got it in there. I don't think it's in user fees. I think it's in external contributions.
Yeah, it's
sorry,
Staff prevention, 911.
No, federal, isn't it?
through the chair, it's through the federal ministry. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, folks, on the motion, on the contract, what?
Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Beasley and Crescent Valley Fire Department, these were late items, but a savings of close to $50,000 if staff could move forward on it right away, so I was good with it. We have two motions. One of them was yours, Director Pop-Up.
Yes, one's Director Newell, please.
Whoever's first.
Director Newell.
Newell or Graham?
Oh, yeah.
Is that you moving the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to second that? Thank you. Discussion? Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the next motion?
And I'll move this, the next motion.
Thank you. Second, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I don't think David's on the line anymore, but it was actually Grant who had done quite a bit of work to find these at a much reduced price and a sale. So he's on it. Everyone's happy about that. All right, we're into grants, 9.5.1. Would anyone, first of all, directors, there was a lot of late ones. Part of it was technical, wasn't your problem, but I hope you all verified your grants because I did not track the agenda according to whatever was late. I rely on you guys to do that. So making sure they're all there. You've done that. Thank you. Would someone like to move the motion? Thank you. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the next section. Thank you, Weatherhead. Second, paragraph. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I did have an open report. I'll be as quick as I can. A couple of things I did as chair. I welcomed the Heritage BC conference, or folks from Heritage BC. They met in Nelson this year, and that was led by our group here, and I did the opening welcome on that. I did do an interview on CBC after our last meeting regarding the climate plan outcome. And if anyone wants to hear it, I can find it again. I did take a few days, but I found it. And I had emails from councillors across the province saying, thank you for addressing the state of civil discourse. So I was grateful to hear we're not alone. I did hear that at the CHAR-CAO forum, but hear directly from other elected officials in local government that expressed, yes, this has been a tricky one, and thank you. So it was a good interview from what I heard. And I attended the Emergency Management Climate Readiness Overview, which was from mayors and chairs. So I think quite a few of our mayors were on that as well. And it was similar to our policy overview with Dan last week, but it was from a provincial, like as a chair, what are you doing? Or what is a mayor you're doing? So there wasn't a lot of new info in it. It was stuff I was familiar with, but I did attend that. And then there was going to be a hazard. They start their bi-weekly to monthly hazard reports now that we're in emergency season. It was supposed to be on Tuesday. They moved it because of the evacuations in Fort St. John. So Director Lockwood's going to attend on my behalf tomorrow because I am in another meeting. Do you guys have any questions for me? Maine.
Just a comment that regarding the state of civil discourse that is playing a major role in the theme of the FCM convention this time, because it's across the country. It's not just here.
Yeah. Some comfort in that and also a little nerve-wracking. Thank you. Any other questions for me or, okay. Stuart.
Evacuations were Fort Nelson. There were 2 Fort St. John. And I heard that it rained for a few hours there this morning, so they're in much better shape than they were yesterday. 2 things I wanted to mention. We hosted our LGMA chapter meeting at the end of April. It was a couple of days of great sessions, had a fantastic turnout of 75 or 76 people. So kudos to Mike, Ange, Christine, Carly, and Melissa, who really took all the organization of that. There was a lot of great events, a lot of great sessions, got a lot of great feedback from the groups there. A lot of us, unfortunately, did miss the Friday because a number of us went to the Senate session that was held at Selkirk College. A few of you were there as well that I saw at that session. They actually hosted 540 people over the course of 3 days. They did a provincial session on the Thursday. They had local government and other agencies on the Friday, and then a public session on the Saturday as well, where they went through their history in the area, which was quite interesting, and then spoke to the DeSalto case as well, and then some of their goals for the area. So I do believe we're going to see a lot more discussions with Sinixt and Colville Tribe in the near future. What else did I want to mention about that? Oh yeah. So when that invitation first came out, I thought it was a staff only event. So I did not circulate it to the board or the executive. So that was my mistake when I saw the invite list and saw a whole bunch of elected officials from our neighboring municipalities on that list. So I did speak to the executive about that. There was some interest actually on having a session just for this board around that. So it might be something where we look at that in the future, and I'll contact their staff member here in town to see how we might be able to arrange that. So those are the 2 things I just wanted to mention there.
Questions for Stuart? Hewitt?
Actually not a question, but I was one of the elected officials who attended that session, and I had made a suggestion to the local individual, and I saw him at the Heritage BC conference, and they are going to try and arrange for in the fall to do sort of a traveling session for communities in this area to present the same kind of thing. So it's not just to elected officials, but to community, because community needs to get brought into this as well. So I was happy to hear that, you know, within a week, they had plans in motion to do that. So,
Thank you. Any other questions for Stuart? Well, we have any directors left online. Okay,
No, we don't.
thank you. Let's do rule of Paris.
Deep breath. So we have 14 recommendations arising from RAC yesterday. As always, you know, RAC is delegated authority to listen to applicants for if they want to present and answer questions about their applications. We had 3 delegations yesterday. Item 7.4, we had Ken Crowe. 7.5, we had Robert Measures and Jeremy DeWitt. And 7.6, Rebecca McDonald, and the others, even though they had the right to 2/3 delegations, did not. So I can block a few of these. I would like to move the first 3 items on the rural agenda as a block that's arising from items 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3. All to do with the Evans properties, all in electoral area I. All 3 of them are recommendation that the board take no further action with respect to notice on title, and they won't read their readings.
Thank you. Seconded by Hanegraaff. Discussion. Vandenberg.
It's important to note that the concern came up that while there is an expectation from RDCK that the applications have been filed, the payments were not made. So the discussion around, well, do we continue to play volleyball, or we were given assurance that if the application fees are not paid, that we will be seeing this again, to which point we can file a notice on title if it so shows.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Chair, no further action at this time.
Yeah.
And at rural, we have had a beginning of a conversation. We need a policy piece around this to save staff some of this repetitive back forth. We'll say so many months. If we haven't seen a certain benchmark or a certain goal reached, we will just file a notice on that. So I mean, our policy decisions would probably take a lot of work off of staff for situations like this problem.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So we have a lot of bylaw and bylaw amendments, I guess. So they all have to go one at a time. So the 4th item arising from 7.6 on the agenda, bylaw amendment, Melville and Whitehead electoral area J. I move the Columbia Rivers Official Community Plan Amendment bylaw number 2964 as described, be given first and second reading and refer to public hearing.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next one is the same property, but because it's a separate bylaw, not a comprehensive land use bylaw, for the same property, move the zoning amendment bylaw 2965, 2024 to amend as described and given first and second reading by content referred to public hearing.
Thank you, Hanegraaff. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And I move from item 7.6 and 6th recommendation that is with the wording there that Director Hanegraaff is hereby delegated authority to chair the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
The next one, we can't do a block because they're all bylaws. So I'm gonna try and, these are all pertaining to the small scale multi-unit housing bill 44 implementation. So recommendation 7 is the electoral area A comprehensive land use amendment bylaw 2953 as described is given first, second, and third reading and consideration of adoption withheld to the Ministry of Transportation signs the amending bylaw.
Second. Thank you. Discussion. Vandenberg.
Thank you, through the chair. The next few bylaws that we're entertaining, one of the things that pops up as being a little bit of a barrier is the notion around, the uncertainty around our bylaw that speaks to septic systems. And that the septic systems, type 2 and type 3 are not reflected. That is a standard of practice. Just some certainty from staff that we will deal with that bylaw so that it doesn't continue to cause us conversation each and every time somebody wishes to come and apply for a variance.
So through the chair, the issue with the type 2 and type 1 is primarily related to subdivisions and our subdivision bylaws, not necessarily related to these ones. Anything within these bylaws, the septic discussion would be caught on the building permit side. So we are going to deal with the issue that came up at RAC regarding that subdivision, but that's a specific issue where we, under our subdivision bylaw, require that before we send the confirmation to, or send the subdivision to MOTI for approval. So it's the same but different if you want to think of it that way, but it will be dealt with somewhere else.
Thanks for the clarity.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Page, take a breath. So next, so these you'll see there, there is A, B, C. So 8th item here, same thing, Bill 44 implementation with respect to the electoral area B, land use bylaw amendment 2954/2024. First, second, third reading, consideration withheld until Modi signs the amended bylaw.
Second. Thank you. Discussion? Cunningham?
General question, and I should, was probably mentioned somewhere before, but I missed it. How come E is not in any of these?
No zoning.
Thank you.
On this bylaw, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Yeah, but I might say, where do we have to amend the OCPs to have compatible language? That's not all others.
Then we'll have a lot more. I think you can just note which area you're referencing.
Yeah, so I think you're gonna try, they're all the same through this.
Yeah.
The 9th recommendation, area C, same thing, 3 readings and withhold adoption.
You second that, Vandenberg?
Yes.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
10th recommendation, okay, this one's a little bit different. No, so, sorry, we'll be the same as area D for a second, third reading and withhold adoption pending Modi sign off.
I'll second that. I'm just gonna note here, because I did actually look at this from the D's perspective that, and I mentioned it earlier, but I did go back and look why were some governments able to defer or request an extension. Ainsworth is a good example where they have a sewer society, but it's not owned by the regional district. It's an independent society. So none of our zoning in this area, and I believe most of the zoning across the regional district is not tied to, nor was it determined by capacity of the infrastructure available. A lot of the infrastructure is independently owned. So that is the difference in terms of our extension, or if we could apply for one. I don't believe we would qualify. So I did go back specifically from a D perspective to investigate that and made sure that it would be through the building permit. It would not be approved if they cannot provide sewer or septic. So that's where it kind of gets stopped based on density and capacity. Stuart, you.
Yeah, and through the chair, the ability to ask for an extension on this was really tied to you're doing major capital upgrades on that infrastructure, or by approving this, you're posing a risk by allowing this kind of density because of the infrastructure you have. So it was very specific around your local government infrastructure, and we would not qualify. No.
And that risk is not determined unless you own the infrastructure. So it's quite different for us not owning so much infrastructure. So I just want to provide that.
That's Chair, what I stopped short of saying, this would be a village in any other world. It's such a small area.
Yeah.
It's like a village almost.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So recommendation 11, same basic premise, electoral area G for second, third reading, withhold adoption pending Modi.
Second, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So recommendation 12, so now this is the one that covers the multiple one, isn't it? Yeah. So this covers Which areas?
Through the chair, F, I, J.
F, I, J, and K. Yeah, this covers multiple areas, same thing for second, third reading, withhold adoption, pending Modi sign off.
Thank you, Hanegraaff. Discussion.
Sorry, we're on number 12.
The
Yes.
12th recommendation.
It doesn't say that.
It is included in that bylaw.
It's in the bylaw.
It's a different format of bylaw for most of us. So
Okay.
it's clustered. It's combined.
All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Paige, I thought you were,
Don't want to take us off for too long, but if we reviewed this in the future, would this be something we could consolidate these land use bylaws and simply have appendixes for the areas as opposed to so many
Maybe.
different pieces of paper? Yeah, through the chair, we're just, there is discussion around that. There was a planning workshop that started that conversation. When those results come back, we can start to talk about that.
Yeah, if I might, I was fully willing to combine A, B, and C comprehensive land use bylaw. And at the time, my two colleagues were not, so we got 3 instead of 1. So it's up to us sometimes, how well we perform.
yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole
Yep.
because I could go off.
Yep.
If you live in Johnson's Landing, you're not combining yourself. So, but we're not gonna have that conversation right now. All those in favor? Opposed, carried, but sorry, Paige, to answer your question, it will come back to us in terms of what that workshop outcome was. It is on our radar to talk about and make a direction. We're not gonna say what direction we're taking at this time.
So
Go ahead.
2 more, Chair, I'd like to move recommendation 13 and 14 as a block, they're both community works funds applications. The one is $12,000 from Area B for the Kitchener Valley Rec and Fire Society. The other one is $51,000 from Area J for Robson Raspberry Improvement District.
Second, Craig's discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, so the one thing we did not do was verbal reports. I'm assuming we are not going to entertain those at 4:20.
Could I make the 4:30 ferry? Oh, whoops, sorry, I didn't say that.
I'm not gonna ask how fast you're driving. They're automatically on the agenda, so do we require a referral on those? Okay, thank you. Did we cover it all, and should we miss anything?
No, I believe our motion was to postpone it. So postponing means it can be moved to the next meeting as well.
Okay. All right, motion to adjourn. Whew, I did not think we were getting out of here by 4:30. Wow.
It's a little bit snowed over this summer. So they're running. That was Mark Madrigal this morning. He said you might get up to 2 inches of wet snow. So it was so good. Yeah. Good night. I don't know when.
Okay.
It's not much. Okay.